pretty thrilled about recounting her assault to a faculty committee, and the nation's depressed individuals march on the Atlantic Ocean. This is the Onion Week in Review. Secretary of Veterans Affairs Eric Shinseki announced plans this week to improve healthcare for American veterans with a new $500 million state-of-the-art waiting room. The 150,000 square foot complex will reportedly feature a wide selection of magazines, 2 water coolers, and receptionists who will immediately give veterans vague answers about how long they can expect to sit there before receiving inadequate healthcare. And in this week's commentary, a local man finds owning a cat is a great way to meet women who magically appear in your living room. In other news, a new study finds employee morale drastically improves after watching a coworker throw a fit. A wise oracle proclaims to all at a barbecue that he felt a raindrop, and an elderly man is hailed as alert.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program here. You can, as always, take control of the airwaves. And you can bring up anything you want to discuss here as we kick off another live Saturday episode. And the number for you, if you want to join us, is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Coming up tonight, if we have a chance, I know, Captain, you've been wanting to talk about the godfather of AI quitting his job over at Google and kind of turning against the thing that he created, as I understand it.
Yeah, he's like, peace out. Oh, by the way, warning.
Whoops. Yeah.
Wait, so he's turning on the machine? Wow, that's a script flip.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a, we've seen this storyline in dystopian science fiction.
Indeed. So we can talk about that. Plus, apparently, Ireland has a new thought crime bill that is shockingly draconian. We'll talk about what that means.
It really is, especially coming from the Irish.
Yep, and then also voters and their opinions about the debt ceiling, which of course is still in the news. Also, people in the United States have pessimism is at a new high. Pessimism regarding the economy in the United States at a new high in the U.S., so we can talk about all of that. But last night on the show, and by the way, here tonight it is Ian.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And the Reverend Captain Kickass.
Last night, somebody called in about Argentina, which we've mentioned before is currently experiencing over 100% inflation over the last year. So it's around 13% a month now because it's been quickening a little bit as well. And the caller mentioned that there's apparently a purported libertarian who is running for president there. The current president, presumably because of the disaster of the economy there and the financial situation, has apparently announced he is not going to run for re-election. So he's out, which means that somebody new is going to get in. And apparently this libertarian guy, he's known for having some wild hair and apparently wild libertarian ideas like getting rid of the peso.
First and foremost, on behalf of Beard Talk Live, he has some of the most righteous sideburns I have ever seen.
Oh, nice. We should get him a shirt.
Yeah, right. And that is intentional. He's sort of hearkening back to their culture and one of their previous liberators. So it was sort of that military fashion at the time. So he's sort of saying, I too am a great liberator for you. Which, when you have over 100% inflation, an Austrian economist, which he absolutely is.
Is he the real deal, you think?
Oh, yeah.
This guy?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Milei, Milei, Javier Milei. What do you know about him?
Well, I know that he doesn't fit into a box easily, that's for sure.
Okay.
Well, but, and I just want to say, because oftentimes when people talk about libertarians or anarchists or individualists or whatever, it gets preceded with the crazy idea. Like, no, they're reasonable ideas.
Right.
They are logical, reasonable, well thought out ideas, unlike the rest of politics.
The insane idea of stealing less from you.
Right.
Yeah, no, I've seen the guy speak, and honestly, it sounds like one of us. Like he talks about, well, you see, money came from the free market, and Bitcoin is a way of returning money to the free market, but the central banks don't like it because it takes away their power to steal everyone's money all at once through the inflation tax.
Oh, it does sound like us.
Right?
And apparently this guy is getting some kind of traction with younger voters and with male voters. At least according to an article. I was actually just happened to be reading a little bit about him today, but the piece that I found was really more about the general political situation down there and less about him. It mentions him, but it wasn't all about him. So I still don't know a lot about him. So you saw him speaking, Peakless Mountaineer. Was he speaks English as well as Spanish?
No,
All Spanish?
It was translated Spanish.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, to use the phrase inflation tax over and over again is kind of amazing to watch. Like, the changes that are happening in common language right now are actually a huge white pill to me. So, like, fiat is a normal word for people to use.
Is it really?
Yeah, absolutely. Even the mainstream media starts talking about things in terms of fiat currency, which is just amazing to watch. So to see him propagate the idea of the inflation tax, which is absolutely what it is. When you print a bunch of money, you are taxing everyone all at the same time.
Yup.
And to have someone on at least Argentina's main stage talking about the inflation tax is really incredible.
Wow. All right. So what else do we need to know about this guy?
Well, that he's being compared to Trump, which I think is a smear, honestly.
Well, okay, let's get the aesthetics out of the way. Is he an old dude? Is he a young dude? Is he,
He's middle-aged.
Okay. All right.
Middle-aged.
Suit and tie guy.
He looks like he's 50 or something
he's
like that.
He's not wearing a T-shirt.
Right.
I see that.
Yep.
He's not wearing a denim jacket. Not that that matters.
Yeah, there's some interesting articles on the guy. This one's Javier Milei, the unclassifiable Argentine politician.
Coming from where?
This one's coming from El País.
Okay, yeah, I'm on that one here too. I don't know if it's the same one, but they've got another one about him.
Yeah, he embodies a South American Trumpism, which, again, I think this is a way of really attempting to dismiss the ideas of anything different occurring. I mean, if I were to compare him to anyone, I would compare him to Ron Paul, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, somebody proposing to end the state currency, which is my understanding. That was what the guy who called in last night said. This guy is proposing to end the peso, the Argentinian peso, and apparently dollarize the country. So, I mean, that's not perfect, but still, it's a step in the right direction, because if you can end a central bank anywhere, go ahead and do that.
Yes, please.
And so, like, Trump has never proposed anything like that. I mean, for all I can tell, he's completely in the pocket of the bankers.
Well, and for better or for worse, I mean, the dollar is the best-looking horse in the glue factory. Like, right now, the dollar is by far the most steady fiat currency in the world.
That's like being the most complete turd in the toilet bowl.
It really is. Yeah. You know, it's like when all of your clothes are dirty and you're like, this is the T-shirt that smells the least bad. That's what the American dollar is. Because if you look at any other currency, they are way worse. Yeah. And like I was touching upon last time, every time that they print a bunch of dollars, it basically gives everyone else in the world permission to print even more, because that's what they're compared to.
Right.
But, I mean, to see a major politician speak favorably of Bitcoin is also amazing to watch, where he's like, I mean, he's not pushing that agenda, but he is pointing out that this is a positive thing and that it's returning money to the free market where it originated. And I don't mean necessarily BTC, but like Bitcoin, the technology, the protocol.
Well, I like what I'm hearing here, according to a different story at El País, which is I think a well-respected, as I understand it, Spanish language publication. They say he recently introduced his chainsaw plan, and this was written back in March.
Wait. It's not a thing that's labeled a thing and means the opposite?
No, it means like cutting down the government. It is a mixture of what they describe as ultra-liberal ideas, where there are no ministries of education, health, public works, or social development, where the sale and purchase of organs is allowed, and where crime is resolved by allowing civilians to arm themselves.
What's wrong with organs, man? They have them in churches and everything.
Well, nothing. You should be able to sell your kidney if you want to do that.
Oh, I thought we were talking about pipe organs.
No.
Yeah, this one on his unclassifiability starts out, anarcho-capitalist, far-right, minarchist, ultra-liberal, the the indefinable Argentine economist Javier Milei has revolutionized his country's politics.
Is this a left publication?
El País?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I only say that because I just really hate how everyone throws anarcho-capitalists
in with
into
far right.
Anarcho-capitalism is not far right. Anarchism is not far right.
To be fair, this very same publication describes him as ultra-liberal in this story.
He just did that two words later. Anarcho-capitalist, far right, minarchist, ultra-liberal.
Yeah.
and from what I understand, this is sort of a Central American and South American difference, and especially I know is common in Brazil, where libertarians are considered ultra-liberal.
Well, it's true, right? I mean, the classical definition of liberal would fit the libertarian.
Classical liberal, yeah.
We actually want to liberate you. But and I think in this country it's been pundits like Rush Limbaugh that really that sort of reoriented the meaning of the word these liberals. Oh, you mean these liberals that are taking away your liberty? Yeah, liberals. But
right.
Yeah, so
the beginning of wisdom begins calling things by their proper name.
I'll just chalk up their nomenclature, faux pas to language, translation.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I mean, basically, their word simply hasn't been corrupted. Like, their word of liberal has not been corrupted the way that the word liberal has been corrupted in this country. Yeah. And by the same token, I mean, I don't see Republicans conserving anything. Like, is there anything that they have kept the same that it was? Because I haven't seen it. No, everything has been changing. It's just they want everything to change slower. I mean, they're just they're Democrats driving the speed limit in this country.
Well, they want it to change slower and in their way, under their control, as they see fit, not as is best for humanity.
But yeah, I mean, this Milei guy has 17% of Argentines willing to vote for him for president so far.
17%?
Yep. Catching up with the ruling left-wing Frente de Todos coalition, which is 25%, and the center-right opposition Juntos por Cambio, which is 27%.
So he's in third place.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. So
respectable.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating to see the parallel with RFK in this country hitting 19% of Democrats. Have you been following that at all?
Not closely. I mean, I certainly know that you're referring to Robert Kennedy, who the junior, I guess.
Yeah, Robert Kennedy Jr. Yeah,
he is known for being a critic of the whole COVID nonsense, and good for him on that. Of course, he's also still seems like a socialist in a lot of ways. So I mean, he's by no means a small government, no government kind of guy. Yeah. He's just a critic on some things we like.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got his authoritarian things in terms of guns, for example.
Yeah,
like, it horrifies him that someone could own a gun that looks like a cell phone.
Did you hear that? I heard a rumor about Porkfest.
Oh.
That apparently this guy is going to be there.
Yeah, I heard that as well, but
the rumor is
I don't have any facts.
The rumor is that if you want to go see him speak, you will have to leave your guns at your campsite or off of the premises or whatever. So they're going to allegedly be searching people coming into the pavilion
to
see this guy speak at Porkfest. I think that's really sad.
That's dumb.
I mean, it's his event. If you want to run it that way.
Porkfest is not his event.
No. I mean, this speech at this pavilion is his event.
That is the official Porkfest speechifying place, right? The pavilion is where, like, Porkfest has been decentralized over the years, and I think that's made it a great event, and that's why it's been a sellout, in my opinion, for the last 2 years. But there still is the official schedule of speakers that goes on in the pavilion, and to see them allegedly, now I've not, this is just what I've heard, to see them shutting down the pavilion, which has historically been an open space where anyone attending Porkfest can go. There's no security there to tackle you for open carrying a gun. In fact, normally that's encouraged at the Porcupine Freedom Festival.
Right.
So for them to reverse course on that, say, oh, well, a politician is coming in and we have to change how we do things to accommodate this politician, I don't see why people like him or this Vivek guy on the Republican side, who is apparently also going to be there, should be allowed at the Porcupine Freedom Festival. I mean, these people are psychopaths who want to rule over you, and them coming to look. I get the idea of, hey, we should work with people we agree with. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but these are just DC politicians. They are not like a New Hampshire state representative who we could actually sit down and talk to and come to some agreements with and actually work with on getting things done. These people are just here to pander. They're just here to look for votes. Why in the world would anyone want to feature them at a libertarian event? I don't understand.
Why would the event go along?
Oh, I'm all for having RFK Jr. at this event. So, I mean, for all of his flaws, he is bringing the question of...
I don't have a problem with him being at the event, so to speak. What I got a problem with is them asking people to disarm themselves at a freedom festival. Porcupine Libertarian Freedom Festival, where open carry is not only encouraged, but it's almost like you kind of you don't have to, but it's expected. So for them to close down the pavilion for a frickin' politician and search people for arms?
The pavilion?
Searching people for guns?
Okay, look, if I was going to have an event at my campsite or whatever, and I didn't want anyone to have guns there, that would be fine.
That would be different than the official PorcFest event at the official pavilion. That is, I think that's a real low point.
Look, here's my very simple perspective. He is making it less likely that we nuke the planet. Period. He is making sure that the question of whether we should be in Ukraine is at least being asked.
Because, politicians have never lied to mass amounts of people
Again,
before.
I don't care.
Why should he be
sure that this is part of the conversation, and that is bloody important.
He can have that conversation anywhere else besides the Porcupine Freedom Festival. I mean, this guy otherwise wants to have a big government meddling in your life, just like the Vivek guy who claims to be, he's anti-woke, so that's why we should, give him a platform too, because that's what some people say about him. Okay. On the other hand, he wants to start a war in Mexico.
Oh, Vivek, yeah.
Yeah, the dude's a psychopath. He doesn't need to be on a libertarian stage at a libertarian festival. Look, it makes no sense. We don't need whoever it is that these people are going to draw. We don't need them. The event's a sold-out event the last two years in a row. Yeah. We don't need whoever it is these people are going to attract. We don't need them.
Yeah, we absolutely don't need any more people being attracted by this. But I absolutely love the fact that this is how it's done now. Like, it is no longer a question of going on Fox News or CNN to announce your candidacy. Because if you're going to say anything remotely controversial, then they're going to block you out of all of these debates anyway.
These guys have been on those shows.
He announced his
certainly
candidacy.
Not been where his focus is.
Like almost 2 months ago.
Certainly not been.
They always come to New Hampshire, dude. This isn't something new. They always come here. They press the flesh. They kiss babies. They tell whatever lies they need to tell to get people to vote for him in the primary. Why anyone should reserve any time for any presidential candidates, unless it's the actual free stater who's running, Aaron Day. Unless you want to put him on the stage, fine. That makes sense. He's a free stater. He actually moved here as part of the Free State Project. He's got the track record.
Put him on stage with either of these two yahoos and have them debate.
Well, I think you're making the perfect be the enemy of the good. Look, the fact of the matter that
it's not my stage, so I don't get to decide. So
right, but
they're going to do what they're going to do.
The fact of the matter is that he's keeping important things in the conversation that would not exist otherwise. On the left, there is no conversation about these vaccines. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
They are lockstep on the entire COVID regime, and here is a powerful, important figure who is making sure to say, hey, this was unacceptable behavior on the part of the government.
That conversation is happening. Why is it important for it to happen at PorcFest in the pavilion? And it's sort of in, I don't want to say violation, but in pseudo violation of, the spirit of
ethos
PorcFest.
of PorcFest, yeah.
Dude, I love the fact that important candidates have to come crawling to us for their importance. That's amazing.
I don't think they're important.
You don't think that RFK Jr. is an important candidate?
I don't think politicians are important.
They're scum, is what they are.
Okay.
Like I said, how tired do you have to be of politicians lying to you? He's not the first guy to say a bunch of nice fluffy stuff and then not do any of it.
Well, there's no one on the left saying any fluffy stuff about questioning the COVID regime. There's no one on the left saying nice, fluffy stuff about not getting us all nuked.
No, I understand how you feel about it. I'm saying, why is it important for that to be brought to PorcFest under their conditions instead of under normal PorcFest conditions?
Well, for one thing, I appreciate the fact that we have the dissident voices on the left and the right here so that they will be exposed to the criticism of libertarians. That, I think, is a tremendously important thing. So, I mean, either this guy's going to have no question and answer thing, which is, scummy and an obvious thing, and that's going to hurt him, or he's going to start answering questions from libertarians. And that, I think, is amazing.
It'll be meaningless. Whatever it is that I'm with Captain on this one. Whatever it is that comes out of his mouth is meaningless because he's a politician. So you can't believe a word that he says. He'll say whatever he can do, and he's probably really, really sharp, right? So he'll sculpt his answers in the way that will be most acceptable to the audience that he's dealing with. He'll try to sound as libertarian as he possibly can, and then he'll move on, and he'll get whatever points he gets from his appearance, and it'll be a total waste of everyone's time because it is absolutely meaningless what these people say. You can't trust a word that comes out of their mouth.
Look, politics is a fantastic place to have this conversation because people actually pay attention when it comes to people running for offices. I don't make those rules. I think that's terrible, but that's how people are. They do not care about these things unless it's in the context of someone either having a position or trying to get it.
Yeah, if you're talking about non-libertarians.
Yeah, I want to convert them.
So somebody asked me,
I want them to come to their senses and return to their childlike sense of logic in reality. And this is not going to happen unless they start having these conversations.
I guess there's a possibility that some non-libertarians will come to PorcFest to see this guy speak. That's a possibility, right? Like that he may attract people who otherwise wouldn't have come to the Porcupine Freedom Festival, but they heard about this RFK guy going to be there, so they show up in Lancaster, New Hampshire, from wherever they drove from to see him speak. Maybe they'll hang around. Maybe they'll talk to some libertarians while they're there. That could be one tangential benefit to this. But that same thing could happen if the Mises Caucus had him speak at their tent. Or you had him speak at your tent, or whatever, because there's dozens of places, venues that are on this campground that are privately sponsored, privately set up. If the Democratic Freedom Caucus wants to open up a tent and have RFK come have a question and answer speechifying seminar, that's great.
And you're cool with them not letting people be armed in that site?
That's their own private site. But to have that happen at the PorcFest standard, at the high-end...
the main stage,
the focused site of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, I think it's a slap in the face to everybody that is trying to exercise their rights.
If he were just going to be there and be on the main stage in the pavilion, far out. I got no problem. When they say that they're going to search people who are attending, who've paid for this week-long festival in advance, expecting it to be a certain way.
So don't go to the pavilion.
I understand that, right? I understand that I have that choice. But for the festival to partake in it is a whole different thing.
Yeah, I'm going to go further than you on this. I wouldn't schedule him for the pavilion even if there were no restrictions, because I think it's a bad look to be pandering to politicians, to be saying, hey, look, we're the freedom movement in New Hampshire. We're going to highlight all these cool things that are happening in here in New Hampshire. Oh, and here are these liars that we're going to put on our top stage at the top location for everybody to see and take them seriously.
They're useful liars. Pure and simple. He is a useful liar to making sure that this conversation happens.
I have no use for liars.
He doesn't deserve a libertarian platform, in my opinion. Somebody asked me the other day at the 420 in Concord, hey, would you want to put him on your show? And I was like, no, I don't want to put politicians on my show, period. I don't want him on the show. I don't want Vivek on the show because I don't care what they think. I know they're not going to change their mind based on any conversation we have, so what's the point of talking to them? There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
Excuse me, is this where I get a license to start a new business?
I wouldn't be hasty. You have to get a license to go out of business, too, you know.
Oh, well, look, I've invented this little anti-gravity machine, see?
Oh, is that why you're walking 2 inches above the floor?
Oh, yes, it's very comfortable. It saves on shoe leather.
Yeah, well, you have to fill out these forms and report to the Human Services Department of Manpower Orientation and register with the Fair Employment Practice Commission, the Wage and Hour Division of the Employment Standards Administration, the State Sales and Income Tax Division, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Social Security Administration of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and, of course, OSHA.
OSHA? I thought that was a little town in Wisconsin.
You'll find out. Say, floating around like that could be dangerous. Have you checked with the Consumer Product Safety Commission?
Well, not yet.
Come to think of it, you actually are flying, aren't you? Look, you need to go over to the Federal Aviation Administration and the Transportation...
It's very hard to get anything done these days if you're in business, but free enterprise built this country. Think what could happen if we don't keep it free. A public service of this station and the Center for the Defense of Free Enterprise, Bellevue, Washington.
We just can't have people floating about unregulated, you know.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Elon Musk has named a veteran media executive to replace him as CEO of Twitter. The billionaire who bought the company last year for $44 billion says Linda Yaccarino will start the job in around 6 weeks' time. FSN's Silicon Valley correspondent Ira Spitzer has more.
Linda Yaccarino steps into the top job at Twitter after 12 years at NBC Universal, where she served as head of advertising. In a tweet announcing Yaccarino's appointment, Musk says she will focus primarily on business operations while he shifts to product design and new technology. The billionaire Tesla CEO has had a tumultuous tenure since purchasing the social media platform last October and taking it private. He's laid off almost 3/4 of the company's staff and overseen a chaotic rollout of a new paid subscription service.
Daniel Penny, the man accused of choking a homeless man to death on the New York subway, has been charged with second-degree manslaughter. The 24-year-old Marine veteran handed himself over to police on Friday morning. FSN's Jody Jacobs has more from court in New York.
In a short court appearance, Daniel Penny was charged and then released on $100,000 cash bail and ordered to turn over his passport. Penny is the man seen in a viral video choking Jordan Neely to death on board a train. Neely was a subway performer who was homeless. According to witnesses, he was begging for food and acting erratically. The performer's death sparked several protests here in New York City as people called on authorities to arrest Penny. If found guilty, the Marine veteran could face up to 15 years in prison. He will be back in court again on July 17. Jody Jacobs, New York.
An uneasy calm remains at the US southern border with Mexico after the pandemic-era policy Title 42, used to expel millions of asylum seekers, came to an end. The Biden administration has now set out sweeping new rules, opening up some alternative routes for immigrants while bringing in regulations meant to deter illegal crossings. FSN's Benji Heyer reports from El Paso in Texas on the US-Mexico border.
There are approximately 60,000 people waiting to cross into the United States from Mexico, with the Department of Homeland Security warning of difficult days ahead. But the scene on the US side, at least for now, is one of calm, of order. Law enforcement personnel here insisting they have the tools they need to prepare for a potential influx. Nonetheless, El Paso remains in a state of emergency, as do many other cities along the border.
Pakistan's ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan has been granted bail for 2 weeks after being arrested earlier this week on corruption charges. His arrest has been called unlawful by the country's Supreme Court. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're talking about the Porcupine Freedom Festival.
I feel underdressed.
Oh, because you're the only one not wearing a Beard Talk Live or Captain Kickass shirt tonight?
That's right. It's pretty sweet.
That is pretty sweet.
You probably have one in that box, though.
I have like 30.
Yeah. Okay. By the way, the Beard Talk Live is coming up later on tonight, 10:30 Eastern Time, and Captain Kickass does have T-shirts available. How does one order a Beard Talk Live T-shirt?
Currently, for our listeners who are not attending Forkfest or Porkfest, you can just go to Amazon.com, type in Beard Talk Live shirt, and it'll just come right up.
Easy.
Or you can go to CaptainKickass.com, and at the top of the page, there's 2 T-shirts. One says Beard Talk Live. Click on the button that says Get Shirt.
Excellent. All right, so check that out at CaptainKickass.com. And then later tonight, 10:30 Eastern, tune in over at watch.freetalklive.com for the latest episode of Beard Talk Live, which I think is just the two of y'all.
Two beards
tonight. By the way, Mark Warden is the Porcupine Real Estate founder, the chief Porcupine Real Estate guy over there. They do some great work helping people who are looking to make the move here to New Hampshire, this libertarian migration, which we were just kind of discussing with the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Mark Warden, of course, longtime sponsor over there at the Porcupine Freedom Festival, longtime sponsor here on Free Talk Live as well. He helps people like you who might be looking to make that move, join the migration of freedom-loving people here to New Hampshire. Find some housing here, whether it be buying a home or even renting. He can help get you connected with rentals as well. A lot of times you don't want to buy right out the gate. Maybe get a feel for the lay of the land and what's in the market. They can help you. They're also doing a series of webinars there's already been some that have been done. You can actually watch them over on their YouTube channel, which is called Porcupine Real Estate. But upcoming seminars include topics like gun freedom, medical freedom, political freedom victories, how to move to the Free State, and finding housing. These are experts. These are people who've lived here. They're Free State Project early movers. They know the community. They know a lot of the stuff that's going on here, and they want to help you understand, help you learn more about this place before you come, before you visit, before you move. Go sign up over at move.freetalklive.com for the upcoming webinars from Porcupine Real Estate. That's move.freetalklive.com. You go to that URL. It'll take you right over to the Porcupine Real Estate website, to the sign-up page. Once again, that's move.freetalklive.com. Let's go to the phones here. We have David on the line in Georgia. David, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
It's catchy.
It's so catchy.
It is catchy.
It really is.
They have made a fantastic jingle. What I called in about tonight was Liberland. I called in about probably a month ago and mentioned Liberland, and I actually went and applied for the e-residency program, and just yesterday I got a package from DHL, and in it I got my Liberland state ID, I got a flag, I got a brochure, and a couple other things about how to activate the card and everything. So I activated my card, and I am now an official Liberland e-resident.
No passport, though.
They are not issuing passports to regular people just yet. They're issuing diplomatic passports, but not for like the government workers, but not regular.
And I'm just curious, how much did it cost you to get this package?
I want to say it was $100 or $150 US.
That's not unreasonable.
Now, a question for you on this: Did you have to do something else besides just pay? Because I know they used to only open this up to like people who are willing to contribute to Liberland. So is this open to anybody with $150, or is there some other thing? Do you have to like certify that you believe in liberty, or what else was there to do here?
So I just had to pay $150, and I had to go through a short application process that asked me kind of my views on things and different things like that. There was like a little questionnaire that you had to do and pay $150. Now, if you want to become a citizen of Liberland, then you pay, I think the minimum is $5,000, and once you do that, they actually have a person do an interview with you. So like you either do a web interview or you actually go somewhere and do like a citizen intake like interview type thing. And I'm assuming that's where they would like assess you out and be like, no, you don't believe in liberty enough or whatever.
I think I was conflating the two things. So e-residency is one thing, and then actual citizenship is another thing.
Right. E-residency gives you the right, I think, to like vote and stuff like that, and it also gives you the right to incorporate businesses in the Free Republic of Liberland. So I could now, if I wanted to, start a business there if I so desired.
Interesting. I know, Captain, you used to have this online e-residency thing that you were telling me about. I don't know if we talked about it on the air much, but I think we might have.
BitNation was the name of that. It's
kind of defunct now, right?
It's not been a thing for, I don't know, probably longer than it was a thing now.
Liberland's been around for almost a decade, if I recall correctly, at this point, and I'm glad
2015.
Yeah, I'm glad to see they're kind of moving the ball forward and, you know, trying to create something. Because for listeners that don't know, Liberland is this little teeny, like, I don't know if it's even a square mile, square kilometer or something.
Than that,
it's 7.2 square kilometers.
0.2 square kilometers. Okay, so
7.2.
7.2. Okay, not very large, and it's in the middle of the Danube River between Croatia and Serbia. So it's literally like a swamp in the middle of this river that's kind of, some of it's below water sometimes, I guess, sometimes not. Yeah. It's not a particularly inhabitable place, but in theory, someone could live there.
Well, so if memory serves, it was through a laughable bureaucratic, mix-up in paperwork. It was a piece of area that neither country wanted
terra nullius. No man's land.
Yeah, neither country really wanted to claim, and so I'm trying to remember the founder's name.
Vitlichka.
He was like, "Hey, look, there's an opportunity here."
Mm-hmm.
Right? He saw an opportunity where the states saw no man's land,
trash. Yeah. One man's trash is another man's treasure. So they started this thing up, and they've been going to libertarian conferences like Anarchapulco. We've interviewed Vit here on Free Talk Live on a number of occasions from these various different conferences. I know they've been to the Liberty Forum here in New Hampshire previously. It's probably been a little while, but they've definitely been up here as well. I know they just had an anniversary conference. I follow their YouTube channel, and they had some 10-minute clips from some of the speeches that were being done.
I'm on an email list for them, so I get some emails from them from time to time.
Yeah, they had some guy who was from the Seasteading group, which is kind of related. They're another seeking liberty kind of in these unusual places groups, and the Seasteaders apparently got themselves a big old barge now, and I don't remember where they said it was parked. I think it was somewhere off of Saudi Arabia or something like that.
Yeah.
And anyway, it was they've got this massive barge which they say can hold up to 50 people, and they're already trying again with the whole seasteading thing, because the last time the Seasteaders got raided by the Thailand king, and they tried to kidnap those people. Luckily, they were
not by
unsuccessful.
pirates, mind you, but by
the other pirates,
by a government.
Yeah. David, anything else you want to share about your Liberland experience?
I want to say, if I remember correctly, I just saw an email the other day that said that their office in Washington, D.C. is going to be opening on, I want to say it was either the 23rd or the 26th
Oh,
of
yeah.
May.
Yeah, it's are they calling it an embassy, or is it just an office?
I am not certain. I didn't see the word embassy in any of the emails, so I'm assuming it's just an office. But there's going to be a representative there for Liberland, so you can go talk to the representatives and stuff like that.
I wonder if you can only call your office an embassy if the host country actually recognizes you as another nation. I wonder if there are rules about what is and what is not considered an embassy.
I don't know.
David,
but
thanks for the...
seriously.
Go ahead.
I'm seriously considering applying for the citizenship once I get the money to do so.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of benefit it would confer, but it would be an interesting process to go through and to learn about. So definitely let us know.
Well, my thought would be whatever to move out of the United States. I was actually looking into what it would take to move to Mexico just a minute ago, a little bit ago too, because I think moving out of the United States would be a fantastic thing.
There's certainly a lot of people who've been doing that. Mexico has a large number of illegal immigrants, if you will, that are moving down there from the United States. Thank you for the call tonight, David. I appreciate hearing from you. The number tonight, if you want to join us, it's 603-283-6160. Let's go to this caller. Caller, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead. What's your name? Hello? Caller?
Hello?
Hi, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hi, we have you.
Hi. Name's Rick.
Hey, Rick.
I called this show night before last, I guess. Right. And I don't know if you were the two guys I talked to or not. I had a discussion with someone about something you were talking about a little while ago, the gun violence problem.
Yeah, you were the guy that wanted psychologists to be able to bar people by giving the federal government a thumbs down, essentially, in a database to bar people from being able to exercise their right to bear arms.
I remember this guy.
Yeah, I just thought that, psychologists go through about 8 years of training, and who would be more competent to do something like that.
Literally
and I don't
anyone.
think it's going to violate Joe Citizen's constitutional right.
By definition, you're violating someone's rights if you're saying that you're going to tell them they can't exercise their rights. That's how you violate someone's rights. You say, I know better than you. I went to college. I have a university education.
So basically, you're okay with someone who's already been diagnosed as psychologically unstable, like the lady who committed the Covenant shooting.
Given the organization that is diagnosing them, absolutely. They have no idea what sanity is.
I am not okay with people shooting up.
A psychologist has to go through 8 years of training.
I don't care about their training, Richard. My rights are my rights, and I don't care how much training somebody has to have an excuse of why I should have my rights taken away.
Richard might be onto something. If we had clinical psychologists evaluate politicians, they would find none of them are acceptable to be in charge of anyone, anywhere, for any reason, and government would end.
I can't disagree with that.
Clinical psychologists are basically glorified drug dealers. That's
politicians as you do, so...
how can you have... It seems like you have a bit of a dichotomy here, Richard. You're saying on one hand, you agree that politicians are bad people, but wouldn't it be politicians who would implement the policies that you're talking about?
Eventually, yeah, it would have to be.
Why would you trust them?
And I know that's, how do you trust people like that? Yeah.
Why would you?
Well, I didn't know if you two were the guys that I talked to about that or not.
But what does it matter?
The idea of,
okay, so
let's
run hypothetically through your system.
You got
for
a fair
just
shake,
second
dude.
now.
You're back now, though.
Let's run hypothetically through your system for just a second. Let us presuppose that psychiatrists are actually capable of telling who isn't sane, and let's give them the power to deny people guns.
I think he was proposing psychologists, not psychiatrists.
Okay. Either way.
Okay.
Let's presuppose that
it's just that. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you think that there is one chance in a million that the government is not going to take that over? Do you really think that they have a reason to keep people unarmed? They always have a reason to keep people unarmed. A disarmed population cannot fight back against the craziest of government overreaches. So even if this was a good idea, it would immediately get taken over by one side or another of the government and used against the other side of the government and used to oppress the population. It's just disarmament by any other means. And dear God, man, look through history at what happens when you disarm people. Lenin, Stalin, Mao, all of these things. Hitler. I mean, I hate to be the guy that uses Hitler in the argument, but he could not have done what he did without disarming the population.
Well, I quite understand that. I'm just saying.
And do you understand that the government will take this power if you give it to their flunkies?
It depends on the bill. I mean, you got to.
Wow.
What makes you think they would follow their own rules
to get it to work?
What makes you think they ever follow their own rules?
Well,
can you name one?
Not a whole lot.
Can you name one?
I just think that there's got to be some better way of determining who's fit and who's not. You got to separate the sheep from the goats somehow.
Why?
Or we're just going to have a worse gun violence problem than we already do.
Okay, let me propose a different solution. So instead of disarming the population in whole or in part, instead of doing that, how about we just stop making insane people? Because right now we have a system that causes people to become insane. That is what our public school system does.
I'm not talking about taking guns away from people who already own them. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I want.
Yeah, because a program will... Can you name one program that has ever stayed the original size and scope that it was designed? There aren't any. No government program sticks to its original size and scope. It always expands.
So, and always there's people who get in charge of it.
I don't follow them,
Yeah, well, maybe you should pay a little bit of attention to what politicians do before you start calling for them to do another thing. Maybe you should look and see that whenever they create a government program, it always goes way beyond the bounds of the original intentions, even if they were good intentions, by the people who created it to be abused by the very bureaucrats who run that system, the very police that enforce it.
And the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah, so here's what you do.
I understand what you're saying, but, nobody has
now you're going to go back to the thing you were saying.
Practical solution to this problem.
Yeah, I got
yet.
a practical solution, and I mentioned it the other night. The practical solution is more people, good people, carrying guns and coming to the aid of people in need of any kind of violent situation.
I don't think I want more than 150 million guns, which is what we've got already. I'm sorry, but it just, there's got to be some other way to do this.
Let me ask you this. What gives you the right and or privilege to decide who or how many guns should be owned by anybody other than yourself?
I'm not trying to usurp that right. I'm just saying that clinical psychologists already go through 8 years of training.
You've said that at least 3 times now.
And their training does not cause them to be able to tell sanity from insanity.
And also, you didn't answer the question. You are indeed declaring that you think you have an idea that would be best for everybody. Where did you get that right from? Where did that come from? Where do you get that right from? Where do you get that privilege from?
I'm not arrogating to myself any right or privilege that I don't already have. I'm just saying that there's got to be some way to get guns out of the hands of people who are not psychologically or emotionally.
Yes, here's how you do it. When a psychopath pulls a gun out and starts trying to kill people, you blast them to death, and then you can remove the gun from their cold, dead hands. That's the way you do it.
And how many other people get killed in the process?
Hopefully not very many.
Covenant shooting.
Yeah, hopefully not very many. Unfortunately, you keep bringing up this shooting where everyone was disarmed because it was on a school campus.
Yeah. I don't hear you crying about schools getting bombed overseas. You're just crying about this one shooting that happened near you.
Well, I'm not in Texas, but yeah, I mean, there are other shootings like that. Uvalde, there's a bunch of them.
Okay, and what about the innocents that are killed by states, by governments through war?
Well, that's not part of the same problem.
That is 100% the same problem. These are psychopaths with the most powerful weapons imaginable. Like, that's your issue, right? Is that you have insane people with great abilities to kill, right?
Most of
those people are dead.
The politicians who are authorizing bomb droppings in the Middle East, they're still alive, most of them. John McCain's dead, but most of them are still alive.
Let's see, Clinton's alive. Bush is alive.
Biden's still there. Trump's still there. Obama's still there.
Well,
not a single one of them has been rounded up.
I just think that there should be some way of, as I said, figuratively separating sheep from the goats so that we don't have to worry about the wrong people getting their hands on guns.
Well, so far you've now called about the same topic 3 times. And you've continued
actually only night before last.
No, you've called about it more than 3rd time. This is the 3rd time in my recollection. You continue to bring up the same point, that you believe that there's a certain class of men, the psychologists, who they went to government school so they know who's crazy and who isn't, which of course is number one reason why to not put these people in charge. But secondly, the whole idea that anyone should be in charge of being able to disable someone else's rights is completely anathema to the viewpoint on this show, which believes in individual rights and says there should be no abrogation of individual rights. And we believe that freedom is the way to more accountability. Freedom is the way to more safety. And we certainly see that in places where you are free to carry a gun. Like, for instance, the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Somebody wants to start shooting up the Porcupine Freedom Festival. That's going to be over real fast. Mm-hmm. And you also admitted on your last call, was it Richard? Is that your name?
Well, Richard, whichever one.
All right, Rick. So you also admitted last time that if somebody really wants to, that you think they would probably still be able to get guns, even though there was a psychologist out there who labeled them as crazy.
I'm not talking about the black market. I know it exists. I'm just saying that there should be some way legally to keep people who've already been diagnosed as psychologically or emotionally unstable from getting their hands on something that they can hurt people
But you've
with.
already admitted that if they want to get their hands on those things in the black market, they'll be able to do that, right?
Yes.
So why do you
something
need to
can be
create
done
more
about the black
bureaucracy?
market,
What makes
too,
you think that
things
bureaucracy is
that
going to
aren't
solve
being
this
done.
problem, Rick?
Well, all I'm saying is that I think the suggestion is viable. I know you guys don't agree.
That's
and
literally all he's saying.
All he's
I
got.
didn't know you were the
And you're
same
not
two
looking
guys
at
that I talked
anything
to.
else. You're not looking at what you lose. You're not looking at, like, will this actually cause the change that you want it to look at? So let me point out something that this will cause, definitely. Okay, all of the psychologists, they get to decide who does and does not have guns. Okay, guess what? They might decide that being conservative is insane. So anyone who's conservative can no longer have guns. What do you think that will lead to, Richard?
Well, it might lead to a tighter government control, and I know you're not a fan of that. I just thought
It might. It might lead to Stalin is what it might lead to, Rick.
But you're okay with it, Rick. I mean, that's what ultimately you've come down to share with us here is that you're totally fine with more government controls. Just make sure it's the right people, quote unquote, who get to decide.
Well, I just think that, I took a lot of psychology when I went to UT because I wanted to be a teacher. And if I learned one thing, it's that the science of psychology has advanced enough to be able to do this. I think. Now, maybe other people don't. So, I just, I wasn't sure whether you were the...
Let me give you another way of looking at this. Let's say that, like, I'm a Catholic, and I believe that our bishops are totally able to tell who does and does not have demons. And I believe that people only shoot up schools when they are demon-possessed. And so people should not be able to have guns if our priests say that they are possessed by demons. I mean, isn't that a reasonable thing?
I wouldn't consider it to be, but that's because
that is the exact thing you're proposing.
The science of psychology has advanced to the point where it's possible
you
to
have
do this.
faith. You have faith that it is effective.
See, the difference, Peakless, between what you're saying and what he believes with his faith is that his churches, the schools, the universities, they don't have a course about demonology. They don't have a course about detecting demons and exorcism. So therefore, that's not a legitimate belief system. Even though what you've described is exactly the same thing, it's not part of his religion. And his religion is the religion of academia, the religion of statism. Thank you for the call tonight. The number here is 603-283-6160. I don't care what your beliefs are. I don't care who your gods are. You don't have the right to take away other people's freedoms.
All I'm saying is
the same thing I've said 5 times in a row. And the same thing he'll probably say the next time he calls in as well. Another one-note Tony here. The number is 603-283-6160. You can join the show. Hour number 2 is coming up here. It is Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, the immigration restriction used to expel millions of asylum seekers during the COVID-19 pandemic came to an end in the United States. Title 42 was brought in under former President Donald Trump to allow authorities to quickly turn away migrants attempting to enter the country's southern border. In its place, the Biden administration has set out new rules, opening up some alternative routes for immigrants while bringing in regulations meant to deter illegal crossings. FSN's Benji Hire sent this report from El Paso, Texas, on the US-Mexico border.
There are approximately 60,000 people waiting to cross into the United States from Mexico, with the Department of Homeland Security warning of difficult days ahead. But the scene on the US side, at least for now, is one of calm, of order. Law enforcement personnel here insisting they have the tools they need to prepare for a potential influx. Nonetheless, El Paso remains in a state of emergency, as do many other cities along the border. And for those in search of a better life, their future remains in a state of flux on both sides.
This week, former US President Donald Trump was found liable for sexually abusing and defaming writer E. Jean Carroll. A New York jury ordered him to pay more than $5 million in damages, but Trump was found not liable for rape in the civil case, as Carroll had alleged. FSN's Sully Patterson has more.
After just 3 hours of deliberation, the Manhattan federal jury reached their verdict. They found former President Donald Trump liable for battery in E. Jean Carroll's civil trial against him. Trump was also ordered to pay nearly $3 million in damages to Carroll for successfully proving her defamation claim against him. He's previously called her case a hoax and a lie on social media. But jurors did not accept Carroll's allegations that the former president raped her in a lingerie department store in 1996. Trump, who's running for US president in 2024, has consistently denied Carroll's claims.
US political leaders tried to reach a deal on raising the country's debt ceiling this week to prevent a potential default at the end of this month. President Joe Biden, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, and other congressional leaders met at the White House on Tuesday. McCarthy, though, said there was no new movement towards agreeing a deal. They were scheduled to meet again on Friday, but that meeting was postponed until next week. Pakistan saw several days of deadly protests this week. Buildings burned, security forces opening fire on demonstrators, all of it following the arrest of Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan on corruption charges. His arrest was called unlawful by the country's Supreme Court, and on Friday he was granted bail, as FSN's South Asia correspondent Ishan Garg reports.
Imran Khan says even though he is now free, he could be arrested once again. He's accused the country's government and the army of conspiring to put him behind bars so that he can no longer contest elections. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has denied these allegations, calling Khan a liar. Khan's supporters are now taking to the streets. Protests have turned violent in the past week, leading to at least 8 deaths and 2,000 being detained by the police.
The US ambassador to South Africa this week accused South Africa of secretly providing weapons to Russia for its invasion of Ukraine, as FSN's US correspondent Jagruti Dave reports.
In remarks to South African media, the US envoy said he would bet his life on the accuracy of the assertion that South Africa had provided arms to Russia. Ruben Brigetti said this was extremely serious and raised doubts about the African country's neutrality over the invasion of Ukraine. A statement from the office of South Africa's president accused Ruben Brigetti of adopting a counterproductive public posture, adding that although no evidence had been provided to support the allegation, the South African government is launching an independent inquiry led by a retired judge.
This week, Elon Musk named a veteran media executive to replace him as CEO of Twitter. The billionaire, who bought Twitter last year for $44 billion, says Linda Yaccarino will start the job in around 6 weeks. FSN Silicon Valley correspondent Ira Spitzer had this report.
Linda Yaccarino steps into the top job at Twitter after 12 years at NBC Universal, where she served as head of advertising. In a tweet announcing Yaccarino's appointment, Musk says she will focus primarily on business operations while he shifts to product design and new technology. The billionaire Tesla CEO has had a tumultuous tenure since purchasing the social media platform last October and taking it private.
And that's the Week in Review. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
After the USDA unveiled its updated roommate food pyramid earlier this week, Department of Agriculture spokesman Michael Lowry spoke to Onion reporters about just how many servings of someone else's food roommates should be consuming on a day-to-day basis.
Under the new guidelines, roommates should eat at least 4 portions of someone else's grains per day, including 1 to 2 cups of already opened cereal. Of course, this is all in addition to the 8 to 16 swigs of milk and orange juice spaced out over a few days.
Lowry emphasized that many aspects of the new roommate food pyramid are unchanged from the previous version, including a recommended daily intake of 24 ounces of lunch meat straight from the bag and 5 to 7 weekly finger scoops of Erica's peanut butter.
Remember to limit your intake of sugar and sweets from half-open containers, especially if they're Jessica's, because she'll definitely notice.
For more on this story, check this week's Onion Review.
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the second hour of the show here, the live Saturday edition. You can join us at 603-283-6160. We started out talking about this Libertarian presidential candidate, not in the United States. They're not usually that interesting, at least not in most of the last 2 decades. But the guy
also don't usually have a serious chance.
That's true as well. The guy in Argentina, however, apparently is polling in the double digits, and for a libertarian, that's like a big deal.
Well, and apparently he also has the highest number of people who are what they call secured votes. Who these are the people who will definitely vote for this person, not probably. So of the so it's like like the 3 top ones, right? Mm-hmm. Of those ones that are important in that country, he has the highest number of I will definitely vote for this one.
Wait. I mean, first of all, I think voting is a ridiculous idea. But that being said, how does one vote before one votes?
You make up your mind.
I mean,
well, so some people are, I think I'm going to vote for this one, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of that before an election.
Okay, so you're just talking about people who declare before
people who've locked in. They've said, this is my guy, right? So we can talk more about him, but the phones are open. We're going to go to your calls and thoughts. It is Ian, Peakless Mountaineer, and Captain Kickass with you here tonight. Let's talk first to Rick, not the same one who was just on the phone. He made sure to clarify this is a different Rick.
Are we getting Rick rolled?
New Mexico. Exactly. Rick, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
We're rolling through Ricks.
Exactly. I'm not that insane person, and I'm so glad he never became a teacher. If they take our guns away from us, we're done.
Yeah. People die every time. Peakless pointed it out earlier. Every time in history, when a government takes away people's guns, people die. Every time, without fail, without exception. Open a history book.
Yeah, like so far I've identified 2 absolute lines of when we're done. Taking the guns is one of them. The other one is when they determine the content of our blood. Like when they decide, here's what the drugs you have to be on, then they'll just make sure that we're on the right drugs to no longer care about overthrowing them.
Don't forget to take your Soma.
Right.
Yeah. Rick?
And also, I appreciate what you guys say. I listen to you all the time till you get a clown on there, and then I just change it to a rock and roll station. But,
Oh, so you never listen to Sarah, huh?
No.
Can't blame you there.
Well, we appreciate you calling in with your opinion rather than just tuning out, because we are an open phone show. We're not going to screen out the clowns. We want to make sure everybody has a chance to express themselves, whether they are a terrible human being or they have terrible ideas or whatever it happens to be.
Right, and I understand that. And I do have a moderate education. I have a bachelor's degree in diesel technology and gas technology. In layman's terms, I was a mechanic all my life.
Okay. So you've actually produced something. You've actually brought something of value to the marketplace and helped probably countless people.
And, you know, I've paid taxes all my life.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that
baloney at the border, those people have never paid a penny, and they're here to get...
Now, what is the baloney that you're talking about, just to be specific, at the border? You talking about the Border Patrol, the bureaucrats?
I'm talking about the people, the millions of people that are coming into this country, and we're going to have to foot the bill for them.
Well, why would that be? I mean, a lot of these people that are coming here, they just want to work and make a better life for their family.
Well, where I live in New Mexico, they're standing on the corner wanting money.
Are you sure they're not looking for work? Because sometimes they're looking for a job.
Yeah,
like you can pick them up, take them to a job site, and they'll work for you.
Yeah, that's pretty standard.
We can't take on millions and millions all at once.
Why not?
They should go through a vetting program.
You don't think freedom works, huh? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
Yes. Yes.
You don't think freedom works?
No, I do think freedom works, but it should be done in the right way.
What does that mean, the right way? Since when has the government ever known what was right?
Oh, you're correct. Them messing with your funny money, you know, that irritates the crap out of me, too.
Okay, all right, so we're on the same page with that. Why would you trust the same people who are in charge of the funny money with whether or not someone should be able to be free to move to a place?
Well, we have the right to differ on that.
But that doesn't answer my question. I'm asking you if you can see the corruption of the Federal Reserve, if you can understand why gun control is a failure, why would you think human control would work?
Well, it can't work. It's a no-win situation.
I don't know. Humanity just sort of roamed the planet for, thousands, hundreds of thousands of years.
The passport's less than 100 years old.
Yeah, before governments, people just sort of went wherever the heck they felt like it, and they figured out how to make it work.
Yeah, the solution here is very simple. The government needs to get out of this, needs to let people decide who they're hiring and who they're renting to.
Sorry, Rick. I don't know if you heard what Peakless Mountaineer said there. Did you?
Yeah, I did, sort of.
You want to run that by one more time?
The solution here is very simple and obvious. The government needs to get out of this, needs to let people decide who they're going to hire, who they're going to rent to, and just leave people alone. Now, I do see your point is in terms of if these people are voting in elections, that's terrible. If these people are getting welfare, that is also terrible. But them moving in to work is a good thing.
Yeah, and I just don't think it's a win situation. And
what do you want to see happen exactly?
I don't want them to come in the country 10,000 a day and just walk in and say we're here. And
why? What impact does that have on you or your life?
Well, I'm not sure yet. We'll have to wait a little while and see what becomes of.
So what do you think? Is it a numbers thing? You think you think 10,000 a day is too many? Would 100 a day be more your speed? 1,000 a day? What is you want to see happen?
Like 500 a day, and be vetted and make sure they're not, have a terrorist.
You can't be free unless you're approved.
So
Ian.
you are actually a little more like the last Rick than I think what you want to believe. You may disagree with him on guns, but here you are saying you think humans need to have someone vet them to be able to come across an imaginary line in the sand. So it doesn't have to do with whether or not they're allowed to have a gun. It has to do with whether they're allowed to actually travel somewhere. You think there should be some expert, somebody that went to a government school.
No, definitely not. I just think they should come in.
So who do you think should be vetting these people?
The way my grandfather's parents came in.
Oh, I see. You were abused, and you want them to be abused the same way.
Oh, no. It's not the same Peakless Mountaineer. He said his grandfather's parents. So we're talking about a few generations ago at this point.
Right.
That is not the same system.
Well, I mean, your ancestors had their time, their money stolen from them by the government in order to allow them to come in. And you want these people's time and money to be stolen from them and their families and their generations and generations.
Sure, but just to be clear, the bureaucracy of today compared to 100 years ago. I mean, he sounded a little on the old side, right? So he was talking about his grandfather's parents, right? Or his grandfather's grandfather, something like that. So we're talking about probably at least 100 years ago. How easy was it to migrate into the United States 100 years ago as opposed to today? 100 years ago, there was no passport, right? Like, so the level of control that there was over humans crossing borders, and, you know, you probably fog a mirror up, sign a form, and you're in, right? Back then. Whereas today, it's like you got to hire a lawyer, you got to go through the right paperwork, you got to pay tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in fees. You have to wait for years. You have to get all the, everything signed in triplicate and make sure.
What's your last name? This. Proof enough for me. Write it down.
You're talking about 100 years ago,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, that's not what it is like today. Okay, it's not like that at all. I think most of these conservative types who hate the idea of people migrating here, they think that it's like just some easy thing. And it's not at all an easy process. It's an incredibly bureaucratic procedure that you would absolutely hate if you had to go through the same procedure to get a gun carry permit in New Mexico, which it may be that bad in New Mexico, I don't know. But if it was as bad as the immigration procedures, you would be driven absolutely insane by that process, and you would be completely fed up with the government. You can't blame these people for just wanting to come across the border and live their lives.
Also, if this particular Rick, not the previous one, this one,
Immigration Rick, not Gun Rick, or Psychologist Rick. Yeah.
Immigration Rick, if he really feels that strongly about preventing people from coming over the border from Mexico into, where did he say it was, New Mexico?
Yeah.
Why isn't he at the border himself preventing?
Well, he hung up the phone, so we can't ask him that question.
I assume he's listening, but I have the same question for people who support war. Right? If you're so for this war or this military, whatever the government decides to call it, the warlike action, how come you're not on a plane hopping over there carrying
Well, I
arms?
think his answer to that, I'll play the Rick role here for that one.
The Rick role.
So to
Never
speak.
going to give me up?
I think his answer would be, look, that's why I pay my taxes, Captain. That way I don't have to be there. I got men in uniform. I got Customs and Border Patrol. Joe Biden just sent 1,500 uniformed military down to the border, and so he'll say that that's why he pays taxes.
But
is
it's
to keep
so much
people
easier
out.
to steal from all of you instead of just, give them my own money and my own potential death.
Sure, yeah.
It's so much easier to just steal from all of you to bribe poor kids to potentially die to do this. Yeah.
Well, you're not going to likely potentially die at the southern border. I mean, that's
I was talking
pretty
about
safe.
I was talking about the people who like the wars.
Oh, right, yeah.
But
now, Mexicans aren't coming across the southern border shooting anybody.
Right. Well, now, and I think a halfway measure for this would be look, if we can just split up the United States, and maybe New Mexico wants all those people. Great, I can tell you, Texas doesn't. So Texas can go ahead and defend its own border against these people.
I think they'd be happy to.
And New Mexico can go ahead and invite them right in, and and look, if you're in New Mexico and you don't like this flood of migrants, so move where they're not allowed.
Yeah, I think Rick would be better off in Mexico or in Texas,
right?
Which used to be Mexico,
right?
If Immigration Rick believes that the solution's easy, we just stop them from coming over the border. Okay,
he never gave us a solution.
Pick any other species on planet Earth other than humans who also migrate across this border and try and stop them. Tell me how easy it is.
Yeah, it would not be easy. And as we've seen, it's not easy. Where there's a will, there's a way.
So if humans can't even stop, ferrets, mice, deer, elk, right? I'm talking Canada now, right? Northern border, right? If if human beings can't stop birds from migrating south in the winter, what makes them think they're going to stop people from traversing one piece of dirt to another piece of dirt?
It's just a fantasy.
Yeah.
It is.
And another thing that they have in common is they're trying to solve these by these weird, circuitous, different angles. So like, oh, well, my problem is that there's crazy people shooting people with guns. So I'm going to try and take away the guns, not the crazy.
Yeah. Or, I don't like these immigrants coming in because you got hate in your heart. You've been taught to hate people who are looking for a better life, who are trying to work.
To fear the other.
To fear the other. I also really don't understand how, like in my lifetime, this hatred for people coming across the southern border has changed from they're coming for our jobs to they're coming to like be on welfare and vote. It's like your fear is still just as crazy as it was. I don't care the reason you're giving me.
Well, and again, okay, I think that's a legitimate complaint.
What?
If you have all these people coming over and getting on welfare and voting, okay, I think that's a legitimate complaint because welfare gets stolen from all of us and voting, well, gets people killed. So, okay, so let's stop those things.
Right, but not a single one of them.
And the welfare state and, like, have some security on your voting because, frankly, I just want to turn down the voting. Like, less and less of that.
But not a single one of those very same people is proposing to end welfare.
No.
Right.
Not a one of them.
Right. That's your issue is they're coming over and taking everyone's money. Okay, let's stop this program that lets them take everyone's money.
And that's always an interesting one to actually bring up to them. And unfortunately, Rick has dropped off the line. But it's always interesting to get their viewpoint on that, to say, what are they going to say? Like when you say back to them, okay, well, why don't you talk about getting rid of welfare? I bet you a lot of them would say, well, we can't get rid of welfare. I mean, I paid into that. I mean, I might need welfare someday. My son's on welfare, right? So, they're not principled.
It's just amazing to me how many people cannot see through the lack of choice when it comes to the quote-unquote services that are being provided by government.
And this is the same reason why people like Trump supposedly going in to clean up the swamp or whatever, they don't ever propose getting rid of Social Security.
Right.
The Republicans in Congress don't actually talk about ending government welfare because they know there's so many people who are dependent on the state payments that it would be a loser for them in the next election.
Well, they know that's the heartstring thing too, right? So,
sure.
Like Social Security, like actual welfare benefits, they're a very minuscule, tiny portion of government's budgets.
Sure, compared to the military
But if you start talking about how, grandma's not going to get her Social Security payment anymore, all of a sudden, everybody in the United States of America suddenly believes that all of the old people are getting a payment and they will all die if government ends Social Security.
Oh, yeah. And guess who recently was threatening to take away Social Security payments? The Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen,
really,
when talking about the debt ceiling quote unquote impasse, which it's gonna get raised, but with the fear mongering,
I still think there's going to be a technical default, which just means a late payment. But look, we all know that they're going to spend more money. It's the government.
Of course, and they're going to come to an agreement or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's the fear-mongering that goes on beforehand where they say, well, we don't want to have to get rid of our firefighters, and we don't want to have to get rid of our forest rangers, and we sure don't want to have to stop making Social Security payments. She apparently trotted that one out in a recent discussion about what might happen if the U.S. defaults.
I had it was a bartender go off about... because I was talking to somebody else at the bar about freedom and ideas and that kind of thing. And the bartender went off. He's like, what? Do you want everybody's waste just flowing in the streets? Because that's what will happen if there's no government. And I'm like, well, you clearly do not understand really anything at all.
Is this guy from Massachusetts? Where'd he come from?
No, this was back when I was out west in the Seattle area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I thought you were talking about the Longhorn or something here in town.
No. This was some time ago.
Okay.
But at any rate, it's still like, it freaks me out that there's people who think that, like, if government doesn't provide, I don't know, a monopoly on your sewage, right? That like it's just going to flow in the streets and people are going to be canoeing through your feces.
Well, if I can't have a monopoly on it, I'm certainly not going to provide this service in exchange for valuable consideration. That's just crazy.
No one actually wants sanitary cleanliness or anything.
Like a bunch of entrepreneurs aren't going to suddenly pop up and remedy the situation and offer a variety of service providers to choose from.
If it's one thing that we can rely on greedy corporate types to do, it's leave money on the table. That's what they like to do.
Because we totally don't have a bunch of entrepreneurs already whose job it is to literally go around and suck out porta potties and septic tanks and do other nasty kind of jobs like that.
And what's especially sad when conservatives don't see these things, they're the ones who are supposed to believe in freedom. Like you believe in freedom, and yet you think it's impossible for people to, plan for their own retirement?
Yeah. Well, they don't actually, as you pointed out, they don't actually believe in freedom. What they believe in is freedom for the conservatives. And that means freedom from immigrants. Freedom from the things that they don't like, freedom from a drag show, freedom from having to be encountering other people with differing belief systems in their lives.
I find that most, we'll call them inhabitants of the United States of America, really just want freedom for the United States government to do whatever the heck they want.
Whatever they want, the individual wants them to do. Yeah, that's right.
Well, and vicariously allow the government to do whatever it wants.
Let's go to the phones here. We have Tim on the line in Florida. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Tim.
Hey, so my dog was giving me a funny look watching my schizophrenic butt pace across the floor, listening to the caller about gun control and how psychologists should be able to infringe upon my right to defend myself by putting me in a database and then handing it over to a group of politicians who he had already admitted that are also clinically insane.
Right.
Yeah. Your dog was smart enough to give you the look on that one, huh?
Yeah, I was just pacing back and forth. And so that was my comment on that. Regarding immigration, back when that guy, not his grandparents, but it was probably his great-great-grandparents when they immigrated here, they didn't have welfare.
Not like today, that's for damn sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I moved to New Hampshire from Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
Now, should I have been prevented from moving here because I wasn't from here?
No.
Yeah.
I don't know. One thing's for sure, the people in the southwest of the United States, which is about as far from New Hampshire as you can get, with the exception of Hawaii or Alaska, they don't have near as much in common with us here in New Hampshire as the folks up there in Montreal do. Right? Like the Montrealites, or whatever you call them, they are geographically closer to us. They know what it's like to live in cold weather, and like we have some similarities to those people. We have a similar geographic.
They see elk on the roadway.
Landmass. Yeah, they've probably seen some moose or whatever. But the folks in Southern California, they can't really relate to any of that stuff. There's more communists down there in California than there probably are up in.
But they're closer
Montreal.
to Mexico, so shouldn't that make them more welcoming to the Mexican people?
I don't know.
Who want to come over and
just depends,
work and provide for their families and try
but
to
the point is,
have a life.
Why shouldn't we have the ability for the people from Montreal to come here unrestricted than the people in California?
Well, I mean,
they're closer.
That's how it just should be. Nobody owns planet Earth.
They should all have the right to come here.
I agree.
Nobody really owns planet Earth. The only people who own planet Earth are the ones who, back it up with violence.
What should be clarified, though, is the people should have a right to go anywhere they're welcome. And what I mean by that is private property where they are welcome. So if you've got a place that you want to hire someone from Montreal, or you want to hire someone from Mexico City, or you want to hire someone from Brazil or wherever, if you are willing to have them on your property to work or to live, no one should be able to tell you can't.
Yeah, and if you don't want a certain kind of people around, then don't hire them or don't rent to them. But it's none of your business if I do.
And if I may interject, this is what finally, a few nights ago, or maybe even a week ago, I lose track of time pretty easily, is what turned me against Ron DeSantis in the end is, his support of E-Verify.
Oh, yeah.
E-Verify.
Oh, yeah, that's
yeah.
the solution. We just need to put everyone on a database. That's a great idea.
It's okay when it's a conservative database.
Oh,
The databases are fine.
It could never be used against them, I'm sure.
No, that'll never happen.
They'll
Thank
conserve
you, Tim,
that information.
for the call tonight. I appreciate it. There's more coming up here. The number 603-283-6160.
Are you about to meet the media? If you're about to be interviewed, do their homework for them. Know this about the person who will interview you. He or she is busy, so expect minimal, if any, preparation. He or she doesn't know as much about your topic as you do. He or she isn't as concerned as you are about getting your message out, so you need to take responsibility. Provide a biography and fact sheet, photographs, or other materials that tell your story. Reporters won't be put off if you supply frequently asked questions. Remember, Public Speaking 101, at the end of the speech, what's the one thing you want them to remember? You can download the document I supply to reporters who interview me and squirm through a video that demonstrates how not to conduct your media interview at www.survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Elon Musk has named a veteran media executive to replace him as CEO of Twitter. The billionaire who bought the company last year for $44 billion says Linda Yaccarino will start the job in around 6 weeks' time. FSN's Silicon Valley correspondent Ira Spitzer has more.
Linda Yaccarino steps into the top job at Twitter after 12 years at NBC Universal, where she served as head of advertising. In a tweet announcing Yaccarino's appointment, Musk says she will focus primarily on business operations while he shifts to product design and new technology. The billionaire Tesla CEO has had a tumultuous tenure since purchasing the social media platform last October and taking it private. He's laid off almost 3/4 of the company's staff and overseen a chaotic rollout of a new paid subscription service.
Daniel Penny, the man accused of choking a homeless man to death on the New York subway, has been charged with second-degree manslaughter. The 24-year-old Marine veteran handed himself over to police on Friday morning. FSN's Jody Jacobs has more from court in New York.
In a short court appearance, Daniel Penny was charged and then released on $100,000 cash bail and ordered to turn over his passport. Penny is the man seen in a viral video choking Jordan Neely to death on board a train. Neely was a subway performer who was homeless. According to witnesses, he was begging for food and acting erratically. The performer's death sparked several protests here in New York City as people called on authorities to arrest Penny. If found guilty, the Marine veteran could face up to 15 years in prison. He will be back in court again on July 17. Jody Jacobs, New York.
An uneasy calm remains at the US southern border with Mexico after the pandemic-era policy Title 42, used to expel millions of asylum seekers, came to an end. The Biden administration has now set out sweeping new rules, opening up some alternative routes for immigrants while bringing in regulations meant to deter illegal crossings. FSN's Benji Heyer reports from El Paso in Texas on the US-Mexico border.
There are approximately 60,000 people waiting to cross into the United States from Mexico, with the Department of Homeland Security warning of difficult days ahead. But the scene on the US side, at least for now, is one of calm, of order. Law enforcement personnel here insisting they have the tools they need to prepare for a potential influx. Nonetheless, El Paso remains in a state of emergency, as do many other cities along the border.
Pakistan's ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan has been granted bail for 2 weeks after being arrested earlier this week on corruption charges. His arrest has been called unlawful by the country's Supreme Court. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open. You can join the show and bring up whatever you want. We're going to continue with your calls and thoughts. People have opinions, surprise, surprise, about immigration. So we'll definitely talk to those people coming up here in just a moment. But I do want to let you know that this hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash. It is digital cash. That's what Dash is all about. That is their focus. A lot of other cryptocurrencies out there, they really don't care about spending. They just want number go up. Dash is actually focused on being useful crypto.
You had mentioned Longhorn Steakhouse the other previous segment, and I went there for dinner and paid with Dash Direct. Got
awesome.
I don't know, 4% off my bill or something like that.
Sweet,
it
adds up.
Yeah, and also the wait staff. The way I use Dash Direct is I don't buy like a gift card that's like a couple $100. Mm-hmm. I just actually wait until they give me my bill.
You get the exact amount.
And then I make a gift card for that exact amount. Yeah. And they're amazed. They're like, that's weird. Your gift card, they're used to telling you how much you have left on the card if you present them with a gift card. So I just write the numbers down on the back of the check. And
and one of the crappiest things about gift cards is when you have like $1.50 left on a gift card.
And you can't spend it.
What do you do with this?
Exactly. So if you can make the on-demand gift card for the exact amount of money for your
that's
bill,
how you're supposed to use Dash Direct.
And then I tip in cash, right? Because that way it's tax-free.
Right. Nice. Yeah, Dash Direct makes that possible, and you've been a fan of this thing since
I love it, man.
Since before.
I wish it would get bigger, actually.
Yeah, since before Dash became a sponsor here on Free Talk Live, and you can get the Dash Direct app on your Apple or Android app stores. It's free to get into it. You get over 155,000 locations across the United States where you can actually spend your Dash. And as you pointed out, Captain, in most cases you get a discount for spending your Dash, which is finally gives people a reason to use cryptocurrency, which is awesome. So kudos to the folks over at Dash for making this stuff happen. They're really doing great work. It is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies out there, and it's widely available on exchanges and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get Dash and use it. You can start by learning more at dash.org. And big thanks to the Dash Decentralized Autonomous Organization for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. You can visit dash.org and learn about Dash. That is dash.org.
And I would just like to point out that I love that there is a free market in currencies when it comes to cryptocurrency, because things like Dash are ensuring that you don't have some dominant thing like BTC that just stops improving.
Right.
Because you keep them on their toes by saying, hey, you can still move things around for less than penny over here. And that lights the fire under them to increase their network technology so that like, okay, hey guys, we need to get on the ball about the Lightning Network so that it can go under a penny like it should have been.
Let's go to the phones here. We get some folks calling in from the radio listener land. We have Mark on the line in Maine, listening to WLOB FM in Portland. Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, how we doing?
What's on your mind tonight?
Listen, I've been listening to you guys talk about the immigration, and I have no problem with people coming into this country, but we are a country of laws, and
that's nonsense.
The Biden administration.
What does that mean? We're a country of laws? We're not a country of laws.
That's mythology.
We're a country of people.
It's a country. No, it's ruled by men is what it is. These people do not follow their own laws, Mark, and I can't believe you still believe that they do.
Well, no, I'm saying that the law is unequally applied. You know, if I do something illegal, I get a ticket or I get arrested, but other people get away with it.
Well, right, because it's a country of men. It's a rule of men, and the arbitrary rule of these men is what we're dealing with today here. And unfortunately, there's all kinds of peaceful people who are getting rounded up and thrown into detention camps for doing absolutely nothing that harms another person, and that includes a lot of the people that are just trying to come here to make a better life for themselves.
Well, I understand that, but the globalists having these people come here to overwhelm our system. I mean, Portland's overrun with illegals, and we're not taking care of our own people that are homeless.
Okay. Do you actually believe that the people who are coming across the border are only coming here because some globalist plot is telling them to? Or do you think it's more likely that the place they're leaving just really sucks and the governments there are tyrannical and they've heard that the United States is more free and so that's why they're coming here?
Well, I think a lot of them are coming here because everything's free for them.
Well, I'd like to back up to you were saying they're overloading our system. So if by government, yes, good. Number one, you can overload that system. Number two, good, it needs to break. Now, if by overloading our system you mean the market, That's not a real thing. You can't overload the market. It changes.
I understand that, but what about all the free things, all the hospitals, all the health care, food?
Yeah, I'm against all of that being stolen from people. We need to stop this welfare state.
So would you agree with us then, Mark, that we should end the welfare state?
Well, no, I don't think we should end the welfare state, but
why not?
We should make sure that
why not? Why not take if your reason is sound, if they are coming here for the free stuff, so to speak, then why would you not take away their incentive? That's the way you're going to stop them from coming here, is by taking away that incentive.
If that's why they're coming.
If that's why they're coming. I'm just saying, let's hypothetically say he's correct, and that's why they're coming here. Why would you not take away the thing that incentivizes them coming?
Well, because we don't control it. The people that run the world are controlling it and saying, come to America, we'll give you free things.
So the reason we shouldn't end the welfare state is because we can't. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the people
No, we
can.
can. We absolutely can.
There's no control by the people. The government is not for the people anymore.
I agree. The government is completely unresponsive to what the people want. But look, if you're saying what we should do is control the border, okay. If border control is just as possible as ending the welfare state, then I say let's pick end the welfare state.
You know, I'm not for ending the welfare state, but I'm saying
why?
Why not?
Get the welfare.
Why do you support welfare, sir?
Well, because there are some people that do need it.
Yeah, that's what charities are for.
But not everybody.
Yeah, why do you trust the government to hand out money to people who are in need? Why can't churches handle that? Why can't charities handle that?
I don't trust the government to do that.
Well, then let's end it.
Then why not end the welfare state? That's a government program, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, I see your point, but there are people that need it, and
Did you hear the argument at all? So that's why charities exist. That's why churches do outreach to these people that need these things. Like, yeah. I'm not arguing that these people need these that these people need help. I'm arguing that the government has no business doing it, and we should all stop being stolen from so that the government can do this poorly and push everyone else out of the charity market.
Yeah, don't you think it would be better if people were able to donate to charities that are actually helping others in the way that you think is best, rather than have the government steal your money through the threat of threat of taxation, the threat of stealing your home from you, stealing money from you through property taxes or income taxes or whatever, and then just handing it out to whoever the hell they want to give it to?
Well, that's where the problem comes in. They just give it to whoever they want.
Right. So that's why we are suggesting the solution would be to end the government welfare state and instead just allow people to donate to whatever charities they think is best voluntarily. Doesn't that sound like a better situation?
It does sound like a better situation.
Okay. Now, here's the next question. If we could accomplish that, if that actually happens, and there's no more government welfare, and anybody that needs help, whether it's paying the rent or getting some food or whatever, they have to go to the local food pantry, they have to go to their local churches, go to the Salvation Army or whoever it is that's offering that help voluntarily, then would you support more people being able to come here to the United States from other parts of the planet?
I would support people coming here. Just we want to know who's coming into our country.
Why?
It's none of your business.
Well,
it's called privacy, man.
Why do you want more government databases, man?
They're letting people into our country that are from countries that are enemies.
Whoa, I think you're confusing the difference between the governments of those plots of land who are run by evil people, just like the U.S. federal government is run by evil people, and the fights that they have between themselves, with the actual human beings who are the victims of these evil people in those countries who just want to get the F out of there so they can save their family and their children from having to live under tyranny. Those aren't your enemy.
You're just choosing one tyrannical government for another. I mean, we're making promises to these people.
I am not
look at
choosing
them.
any tyrannical government, sir. I am against tyrannical governments. I don't think that they should exist. And that includes the United States federal government. But you're the one here who said you want to have a database. You want to know who's coming in. And that means, the translation of those words means you want the federal government, who are evil tyrants, to have yet another system of control that you think is a good idea to register people underneath, to file more reports about, to have agents investigating people, have a larger police state. This is what you really want? A bigger police state?
No, they don't know. It isn't.
Well, that's what happens when you put people on these lists like this. That's what happens when, like, we've got to know everyone who's coming in. No, we actually don't. People need to have their privacy.
Yeah, how about you just have your right to bear arms, and if there's a troublemaker that comes in, we just deal with him the old-fashioned way.
Well, that's perfectly fine. I mean,
great.
The more guns in good people's hands, the less crime.
Right. So, we don't need the government databases if we got our freedom to defend ourselves, right?
I totally agree with that. I just think that these countries are emptying out their jails and they get rid of the citizens they don't want in their country, and they're sending them to us.
Who's telling you that?
They say it on the talk shows and everything like that.
And
the talk shows.
And let's say you're right about that. Let's say hypothetically that is the case. Look, if I'm getting locked up by my government here, then I probably want to get away from them.
I'm getting possibly locked up by the government here. Our co-host Aria is facing 18 months in federal prison. She's going to be a felon when she gets out, and most people aren't going to ask her.
Violation.
Yeah, most people aren't going to ask her why. But yeah, for paperwork violation. So I don't know. I'm not so afraid of people that have been in other governments' prisons because I don't trust governments to put the right people in prison. Do you?
No, I don't.
All right. I think we've made some progress here.
I just think on the immigration thing, they're letting all these people in to overwhelm the system to make our country like theirs.
Okay, what do you mean overwhelm the system?
The health care, the free,
the welfare state.
Right. So let's end the welfare state.
This guy is just repeating what he's heard on the news.
Well, but I think we've given him some things to think about, and he is repeating some things he's heard on talk radio. And they want you to believe that these people are your enemy, okay? And one of the reasons why they want you to believe that is because they want you to be distracted from who the real enemy is, which is the people in Washington, D.C., who are ruling your life and telling you how to live and stealing endless amounts of value from you and printing out the money endlessly to, again, steal more of the value that you've created in your life. These people are the ones who are the trouble. They're the ones who are putting peaceful people behind bars. They're the ones who are bombing innocent people all around the world and forcing you to pay for it. But they want you to think that Javier down in Mexico City or whatever, or, Juan from Guatemala who just wants to come up here and pick some watermelons, for 40 cents a melon or whatever, that they're the problem. And they're not. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate your call. I do appreciate hearing from you here. Let's talk to Ella, because there always has to be an enemy, right? Like they addressed this in V for Vendetta, which is a great movie if anyone hasn't seen it yet. And Ella, just hang on a sec. They addressed this where the big bad guy in that movie, Chancellor, whatever the hell his name was, he said, we have to remind them why they need us. Yeah. There has to be someone to be afraid of that you can look to the government, because the government's going to say, we'll protect you. Yeah. Oh, you're under threat from the terrorists. You're under threat from those people with COVID. You're under threat from the drug dealers.
You're under threat from the people who want to pick fruit.
Yeah. As long as the oppressed are looking horizontally across at each other, and that's what we're worried about, then we will never look vertically at the people above us that are oppressing all of us.
That's right. Ella, you're on in Maryland, listening also on the radio to our station in Pennsylvania, WEEO. Go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to mention that there were requirements for immigrants 100 years ago. That's why so many came through Ellis Island. And I know there were ways around that, because you could still theoretically take a boat, land on a beach, nobody would notice,
right,
and go on with your life.
Yeah.
But but there were requirements. There were physical examinations and documentation. There was a process to it. It really, if people did it correctly, and a lot of people did, there was a process, and it wasn't a guarantee that you were going to be allowed to stay.
Right. And that was my point, was that the legal method of entering the country is a theft of your time and your money, and every cent that they take from you and every second that they take from you,
you don't get it back.
Yeah, you don't get it back, and it's what you cannot leave to your posterity. So if your grandparents were required to go through this process, that is a little bit that was stolen from you.
And it was a scary process. I think that's part of the control they had over people. You know, people were afraid they were going to fail the examinations, or that one person in the family would be sent back and everybody else would be allowed to stay.
Yep. Separating families at the border. Where have I heard that?
I've been doing it for a long time. That said, it was probably not as bad back then as it is today. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, I don't know. I wasn't there, but it's. I think it's just a different kind of bad. You know, at that point, people were still not really settling, but kind of building America. We weren't kind of to where we are now. So I think maybe the philosophies behind it were, I don't know. Some of them were probably the same, but they were coming to a different place.
Did you need a lawyer back in the late 1800s to get through that process?
I don't know.
Because you do today. I mean, you need to have a lawyer today. You got to have somebody, an immigration attorney who knows the procedure, who knows the bureaucracy, who knows all the forms, who can hold your hand through a very lengthy, years-long, in many cases, process. This isn't just you show up at Ellis Island, fill out some forms, and see a doctor, and then hope the bureaucrats let you in. This is forms, endless forms, thousands of dollars in fees, attorney time, court time, and lots of bureaucracy.
I know a person who was recruited by, let's just say, a very large software company in Seattle, Washington, recruited by them from Great Britain. He's a British chap, because they could not find anybody with his qualifications, his engineering and his software ability in the United States.
Right.
And so they imported him. They paid for the attorney. They paid for all of the, all the forms to be filled out. They paid for his travel, his relocation, all that kind of stuff. It took somewhere between 5 and 7 years for that to be completed before he was officially recognized. So he was here on like a work visa while the process was going on. It took almost 7 years.
And that's the easy road.
And this is for a guy highly sought after by a
corporate
software
sponsor.
company with a corporate sponsor with a bunch of money behind it and all the attorneys they could ask for to make it go. And they had, he said he saw them, they had 3-ring binders, the big, half-foot thick 3-ring binders. They had like a whole desk full of them just on him.
Just on him.
To get him over here because of his qualifications.
Absolutely insane.
I can't imagine what it's like for somebody who doesn't have those resources and sponsorship, somebody who's just, afraid for their life, running from, tyranny in their country, want to come somewhere and make a life for themselves. And that process they have to go through, they shouldn't have to go through at all.
That's why there's the saying, it's easier to swim the Rio Grande than climb the mountain of paperwork. There's a reason for that saying.
Yeah.
Anything else, Ella, you want to share with us tonight?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate it. Let's continue here with this caller. Caller, you're on Free Talk Live. What's your name?
Hello, I am John from America.
Hi, John. What's on your mind tonight?
I just want to say I've been listening for a couple of years now to y'all's thing, and I just want to say I appreciate everything you're doing, and I definitely am a listener. Even if you don't hear from me much, that's it. I just want to say thanks for everything you're doing, and I agree with mostly everything y'all say. I don't really have much more to say than that. Than just thanks for.
Well, that's
for
very
everything.
kind, and we appreciate you being out there. You don't have to disagree with us to call in, although it certainly makes things more interesting usually when.
But thank you for listening.
And hey, I appreciate the courage that it takes to call in.
It does.
Because I mean, I remember the first time I ever called into this show.
It's nerve-wracking.
It's nerve-wracking. My hand was shaking. Like it's a little scary. So I appreciate you having the courage to call in, because I know there are people out there that have information and opinions that they would share, but they're a little too intimidated by the process.
Yeah, I do have one other thing. When I heard you talking to the guy about, he was talking about like the free healthcare or whatever benefits that. Yeah. I was thinking, I kind of do feel like there is a little bit, like the way the government likes to work is they do like to cover their bases. So like if you try to go one way with a thing, they will make sure that they already had that covered. So in terms of like making this state a free state where anybody could just come in, or a free country where anybody could just come in and just do whatever they want, I do feel like there is some obviously pros and cons to that, because like if we think about how America got started, the natives were like, yeah, for sure, come on along in, like you want to be a part of this thing, yeah, go for it. Like I don't think the indigenous people, there are definitely tribal governments, and not all tribes agree on one thing, but overall, from what my understanding of tribes, they're pretty much pretty good at integrating with other people. Like we don't, historically speaking, you don't see a tribe full of ancestral people, because tribal people tried to, create genetic diversity. I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
Did they? I don't know. I would have figured some tribes would have been accepting and other tribes would have been pretty nasty, but I wasn't around back then, so that's just speculation.
If tribes didn't want to integrate with other tribes, then genetic degradation is a thing that
I see what you're saying.
You won't last that long.
There's and this is something that is done on an individual basis. Like this is literally why accents are so sexy, is because your genes are detecting
that's a different
gene
person.
Set.
That's an interesting point. Thank you for the call tonight, John. I appreciate hearing from you. Let's continue here. This caller, you're on Free Talk Live. What's your name?
Hi, this is Chad.
Hey, Chad, where are you calling from?
Michigan.
Welcome, sir. You're on the air.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that I don't think most illegal immigrants are coming here for welfare. They're coming here because their lives are a living hell in their countries of origin, because mostly of American foreign policy. If you want to stop illegal immigration, probably getting rid of the drug war would be a good start, because if you're living in a narco state, you're terrified for your life.
Yep.
And this is why these people are fleeing. So, in my opinion, that would be probably one of the better solutions.
I think that's definitely would be a step in the right direction. However, ending the war on drugs won't necessarily end the tyranny of these commies, right? So like Mark Edge, he's one of our co-hosts. He lives part of the year down in Honduras, and he says that the communists basically have taken over the government down there, and that's probably one reason why it's one of the most dangerous countries on the face of the planet as far as murders and rapes and things like that, because, communists aren't very good at doing anything effectively, so it's a bit of a tyranny kind of situation down there. I mean, ending the war on drugs would be a good thing for the whole world, there's no doubt about it, but it's certainly not going to end human oppression.
Yeah, there is certainly something
to... it won't end it.
Right.
Yeah, there certainly is something to the blowback argument. The United States has been building its empire and creating
Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador.
Chad, I don't know if you want more. If you got more to say, hang on. We can bring it back here in moments. Hour number 3 is on the way. If you want to go, that's cool too. But hour number 3 is coming up. We do have time for you. Your thoughts. Open lines are available for you at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can join the show. You're on Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
Is everything that you've spoken of about the government tonight has been in a negative connotation.
What is there to like about the federal government?
Tell me what's great about the United States federal government.
protection. They protect us.
They've got a military that's 9 times the next closest military. That's not protection. I'm forced to pay for it.
The terrorists will tell you the reason why they're engaging in terrorist activities, if they are inside the United States, is because of what the U.S. government's military is doing. They're putting us in greater danger through their actions, sir.
When is the last time that you've watched someone else stab someone blatantly or blown themselves up?
That has nothing to do with the federal government.
An armed populace is what keeps a particular area safe, not soldiers.
Yeah, right.
Soldiers are all over the place in Venezuela.
Yeah. Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, the immigration restriction used to expel millions of asylum seekers during the COVID-19 pandemic came to an end in the United States. Title 42 was brought in under former President Donald Trump to allow authorities to quickly turn away migrants attempting to enter the country's southern border. In its place, the Biden administration has set out new rules, opening up some alternative routes for immigrants while bringing in regulations meant to deter illegal crossings. FSN's Benji Hire sent this report from El Paso, Texas, on the US-Mexico border.
There are approximately 60,000 people waiting to cross into the United States from Mexico, with the Department of Homeland Security warning of difficult days ahead. But the scene on the US side, at least for now, is one of calm, of order. Law enforcement personnel here insisting they have the tools they need to prepare for a potential influx. Nonetheless, El Paso remains in a state of emergency, as do many other cities along the border. And for those in search of a better life, their future remains in a state of flux on both sides.
This week, former US President Donald Trump was found liable for sexually abusing and defaming writer E. Jean Carroll. A New York jury ordered him to pay more than $5 million in damages, but Trump was found not liable for rape in the civil case, as Carroll had alleged. FSN's Sully Patterson has more.
After just 3 hours of deliberation, the Manhattan federal jury reached their verdict. They found former President Donald Trump liable for battery in E. Jean Carroll's civil trial against him. Trump was also ordered to pay nearly $3 million in damages to Carroll for successfully proving her defamation claim against him. He's previously called her case a hoax and a lie on social media. But jurors did not accept Carroll's allegations that the former president raped her in a lingerie department store in 1996. Trump, who's running for US president in 2024, has consistently denied Carroll's claims.
US political leaders tried to reach a deal on raising the country's debt ceiling this week to prevent a potential default at the end of this month. President Joe Biden, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, and other congressional leaders met at the White House on Tuesday. McCarthy, though, said there was no new movement towards agreeing a deal. They were scheduled to meet again on Friday, but that meeting was postponed until next week. Pakistan saw several days of deadly protests this week. Buildings burned, security forces opening fire on demonstrators, all of it following the arrest of Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan on corruption charges. His arrest was called unlawful by the country's Supreme Court, and on Friday he was granted bail, as FSN's South Asia correspondent Ishan Garg reports.
Imran Khan says even though he's now free, he could be arrested once again.
He's accused the country's government and the army of conspiring to put him behind bars so that he can no longer contest elections. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has denied these allegations, calling Khan a liar. Khan supporters are now taking to the streets. Protests have turned violent in the past week, leading to at least 8 deaths and 2,000 being detained by the police.
The US ambassador to South Africa this week accused South Africa of secretly providing weapons to Russia for its invasion of Ukraine, as FSN's US correspondent Jagriti Dave reports.
In remarks to South African media, the US envoy said he would bet his life on the accuracy of the assertion that South Africa had provided arms to Russia. Ruben Brigetti said this was extremely serious and raised doubts about the African country's neutrality over the invasion of Ukraine. A statement from the office of South Africa's president accused Ruben Brigetti of adopting a counterproductive public posture, adding that although no evidence had been provided to support the allegation, the South African government is launching an independent inquiry led by a retired judge.
This week, Elon Musk named a veteran media executive to replace him as CEO of Twitter. The billionaire, who bought Twitter last year for $44 billion, says Linda Yaccarino will start the job in around 6 weeks. FSN Silicon Valley correspondent Ira Spitzer had this report.
Linda Yaccarino steps into the top job at Twitter after 12 years at NBC Universal, where she served as head of advertising. In a tweet announcing Yaccarino's appointment, Musk says she will focus primarily on business operations while he shifts to product design and new technology. The billionaire Tesla CEO has had a tumultuous tenure since purchasing the social media platform last October and taking it private.
And that's the Week in Review. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
A new report from the National Center for Education shows that an alarming 10% of U.S. high school students graduate without basic object permanence skills. According to the study, a growing number of American seniors are lagging behind their international counterparts when it comes to the crucial knowledge that things don't just disappear if you're not looking at them.
Because it exists even if your eyes can't see it. Am I making sense?
No. U.S. high schoolers have dropped to 17th in science, 25th in math, and a troubling 180th place in the basic cognitive awareness most humans develop as toddlers. Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan is asking Congress to fund increased after-school disguise and reveal programs.
It's time to get the kids excited to learn the most obvious mental concepts that make us capable of functioning.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to do better. It's just I don't know how I'm supposed to learn anything if I don't even have a teacher.
I'm still here, Vanessa.
Some educators worry that too much focus placed on object permanence might take away from other important skills, such as not touching hot things that could burn you.
This is the Onion News Network.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. We are kicking off the third hour here on this live Saturday episode where you, as always, can take control of the airwaves and bring up anything you want to discuss. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160.
Yeah.
However, that number right now is loaded up. We have every single phone line occupied.
Phones are packed. Even the SIP line?
No.
Oh, okay.
With the exception of the SIP line. Now, the SIP line, really only to talk about it when we run out of regular phone lines or when somebody happens to call on it. Which doesn't happen that often. It is open right now, but you do have to jump through a couple hoops to get connected. You have to get the right program. You have to sign up for a SIP account with a free provider. It doesn't take that long to do, but it's a little more involved than just dialing the phone number. So go to
VIP line.
Kinda, yeah.
You sound great, and almost no one ever uses it.
That's right. Yeah, it is an increase typically to your audio quality as well.
Instead of a very important person, it's a super important person.
You can go to that's a great idea. I like that. SIP.freetalklive.com. That's SIP.freetalklive.com. There's step-by-step instructions there for iPhone users or Android users. You can make that happen, and then we'll get you on here. Of course, you can also call 603-283-6160 as soon as you hear somebody hang up. So here tonight, it's Ian.
Beakless Mountaineer.
And the Reverend Captain Kickass.
We still have Chad with us calling from Michigan. He's listening to us online. And Chad, apparently, you had more things to say. We were talking about immigration. Somebody called in about it. And, of course, that always blows up the phones typically. So what else did you want to share tonight?
Well, I mean, my point being that especially with conservatives. I mean, these people are big supporters of Reagan, the Bushes. These guys, their foreign policy turned the third world into a living hell. And as a result of that, not just the drug war, there was a lot of stuff going on. And this is the same for Europe and the policies after World War I in the Middle East that caused the Middle East to burn. And it's burned down to the point where these people, they don't want to leave their home. These people don't want to just pack up everything just to come here to get free government cheese.
Right.
Yes, they might when they get here. The reason that they're coming here is because they're terrified for their lives because of American foreign policy. So if all of these conservatives are so worried about these people crossing the borders now, they should have done something about it when we actually could. And I mean, what would you do if your family was in a situation where there were death squads? You know, it's the School of the Americas. The CIA was running a massive drug running operation out of Central America. George Bush Sr. was in charge of it. His Zapata Oil Company was a front for running drugs.
Hold on a second. Are you saying the CIA was running drugs? You mean they're not running drugs now?
Right.
Well, of course they're still running drugs. and I mean, that's the thing is that, I mean, is anyone, like, this stuff is not getting brought up in mainstream politics, but there's an enormous amount of evidence for it. I mean, the kids who got murdered down in Mena, Arkansas, the whole Barry Seal thing. I mean, these guys have destroyed Central America, and that's where a lot of these people are coming, is not even from Mexico. A lot of them are coming from Central America, and they're going on foot all the way to the American border. That's insane.
Just imagine that.
I mean, these people, this is not because they want to come here and get Social Security. Okay, that's not why they're doing it. I mean, like I said, that could be a side effect, you know, and
which they wouldn't qualify for anyway. You know.
Well, most likely they probably wouldn't qualify for Social Security. I'm sure there's some things they could get. I'm not even worried about that. You've got to stop murdering people in other countries, and then they won't want to flee.
Unfortunately, Chad, I mean, you're nailing it. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. Unfortunately, the conservatives now want to start an actual hot war. Some of these conservatives, they actually have a bill in Congress to send the military into Mexico to actually have a war. To actually start a war, a real shooting war with the cartels in Mexico. This is what they're actually proposing. And it's not just the presidential candidates like that Vivek character that we mentioned previously, who actually is out there on the campaign trail pounding the war drums for a war with the cartels, claiming that fentanyl is a war against the United States. They're fighting a war against our citizens, so we should fight back with bombs in the military. I mean, that's where they're going now. It's not enough killing in South America.
I have a great idea if you want to win this war. So stop funding them. All of their money is coming from the fact that drugs are illegal here.
That's right.
All of their money comes from drugs that are sold in countries where it's illegal. If you make it legal, then all that extra, the extra on top of what the market would demand for just an agricultural product, all of that extra from the risk wouldn't exist, and then all that money wouldn't be going to all of the fully automatic weapons that these cartels have.
But then what would happen with the military-industrial complex? I mean, they got to have wars to fight.
Yeah, I mean, like, can you imagine? Like,
it would just be the industrial complex.
How soon would we have gotten out of Afghanistan, or if we'd ever gone in at all, if heroin was legalized and we wouldn't have been protecting those poppy fields?
Doesn't the CIA stand for cocaine in America?
They certainly do run all of the cocaine in America.
Chad, any other thoughts you want to share? Go ahead.
That's it for now. Thanks, guys.
Best call of the night so far. Thank you for the call tonight, Chad. I definitely appreciate hearing from you. Let's talk to Wayne. He's calling us from Tennessee, listening in Chattanooga.
It's Wayne's World.
WGOW. Go ahead, Wayne.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, what's on your mind?
It's party time.
Yeah, man.
Excellent.
I was just listening to you earlier tonight. Tonight's the first time I've actually listened to you guys.
Thanks.
Sure, I'll be listening some more in the future. But so when you were talking about the welfare system, I believe it's widely taken advantage of when it comes to Section 8 housing and food stamps, SNAP, whatever you want to call it. But you mentioned that, why can't we just have churches fund it and stuff like that? Where would those donations come from?
People who want to help others.
Yeah, so the politicians
do you believe that
Okay, so right now, there are politicians getting elected because they make the promises of feeding the hungry and clothing the people and giving them housing. Those people are getting elected to positions in politics because they promise to do that. Now, that means people want these things done. Now, when people want things done, they're willing to pay for them. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah, well, I don't see how, if it were based solely off of donations, where you would come up with that amount of money needed to supply the needs for the ones who actually need it.
So then it's okay to force people to have to give up their money, making them basically slaves to fund something that you don't believe?
Not. Absolutely not.
Well,
I would suggest, in a perfect world, I would suggest that there are more restrictions, more, hoops you have to jump through in order to get on these government.
So he wants more controls over the welfare state money.
No, not control. I think we should know where our tax dollars are going, exactly where they're going, dollar for dollar. And there should be more restrictions. So say I were to apply for these programs, I can't just jump in there and say, here, pay my $800 a month mortgage or $950 a month food stamps. You need to prove, without a shadow of doubt, that you actually need these services.
Well, here's the thing. The government, A, is not capable of making that determination, and B, will never be capable of making that determination, and C, has no incentive to give the money to the right people. Now, what would work? If you had competing charities, they've got to say, hey, here are the people that I've helped. If they want your money, they have to show that they're doing their job. So they will find whether or not these people actually need this assistance so that they can brag about it later, so that they can get more donations and compete in the market of charity.
I think there's something you're missing, Wayne. I want to come back to your objection about the money. There's not enough, right? Oh, there's not enough money. We need the government to handle it. I think there was a really great point that Dr. Mary Ruwart made in her book, Healing Our World, where when you look at the overhead of a charity, an effective charity, it's like 90% goes to the beneficiaries and 10% runs the charity. Maybe 80-20, right? Like a particularly effective charity.
Yep.
When you look at welfare programs from the government, it's the reverse. It's like at best 70 or 60% pays the bureaucrats and 20 to 30% goes to the recipients. Now, we also know that if you fill out the forms correctly, you get the paycheck, right? Because as you were pointing out, Wayne, they're not as selective. They're not looking at, who's who and why do they need the money. They don't care. They're just bureaucrats. They stamp the forms. They cut the check. Boom, done. So not only do you have just out the gate more efficiency from a private charity, they're going to take the same they're going to take even a lesser donation and do more with it, but also they're going to give it to the right people instead of just giving it to anybody who fills out the form. So the reality is the charities don't even need maybe an eighth of the money that the welfare system currently uses.
That's absolutely right.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Well, another,
in my mind, I'm thinking, who do I know would donate to?
I want to address that one. So, imagine, if you will, that we had a government program that gave everyone a car. Now, in that world, you would probably be saying, look, I just don't think that there are going to be people who are willing to put together the companies to make cars. It's a huge investment. We obviously have to do this with a centralized system. But we don't live in a world where car making is monopolized by the government. We do live in a world where charity is monopolized by the government.
Yeah.
So if that weren't there, then people would be able to compete in that market.
Have you ever seen, Wayne, you're listening there on WGOW. I don't know what kind of fundraisers they do on that station, but a lot of times, usually like in the holiday season, a radio station will go down to a local grocery store and they'll do like a Toys for Tots or Cans for Poor Families thing. And they literally fill truck after truck after truck of donations to poor and needy families from people who just come by and bring some old toys or brand new toys or canned food that they just bought at the grocery store, and they just load up on donations. And that's with the overhead of taxes that everybody has to pay. I think that all the evidence shows that people in America, people around the world for that matter, are generous and they want to help people. And if they have the resources, they will help people. And so if we don't have the overhead of having to pay for the welfare state, that's more money in the pockets of the average person that they can give to these charities.
Every government program can and should be a GoFundMe.
And one side of this is people love being part of a church that actually does something. Like that.
It's meaningful.
Yeah, it gives them a meaningful identity to be like, look, this is what my church is doing. They love that. And churches really like to have members. So absolutely, there's going to be a huge push for that as soon as the government isn't cheating.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you smashed my argument there. I was completely in line with most of everything what you guys are saying. But the first thing that popped into my mind was, we get rid of the welfare program altogether. There's going to be a lot of hungry children. There's going to be a lot of hungry grandparents.
No way. They'll be eating better than ever. And thank you for the call, Wayne. I do appreciate your thoughts, and I appreciate you calling in with that question. It is a darn good question. It really is.
He was calling from Wayne's Speedway.
Yeah, there's a lot of traffic going on out there. But that's all right. It's a good conversation. It's an important one as well. How will people be taken care of? And things would happen that aren't necessarily happening today that may have happened in the past that we can kind of go and look at, like a mutual aid kind of society.
I was just thinking of friendly societies.
Can you explain that? What is that?
So friendly societies are something that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, it's an old idea.
They were people who would get together and pool their resources. For example, before government got involved in healthcare, communities of people used to get together and they would fund a doctor.
Right.
You mean like the Shriners? Right. You remember those guys in little cars with the funny hats?
That was one of them.
They do that stuff, right?
Those are the remnants of what we call friendly societies. They were largely groups of men who got together and tried to solve problems.
Right.
Ooh, wow, weird.
Voluntarily,
yeah, like, whoa, unheard of, right? So, like, they would get together. They would all pool their money. Everybody chip in, right? It's like chipping in for pizza. Hey, I got 10 on it. I got 5. I got 12, whatever it is, right? It's the same kind of thing. Y'all chip in and pay a doctor's salary for a year. Not everybody's got a doctor. He'll do house calls, right? And if somebody is like sort of monopolized, if you got a hypochondriac in the group or something, right? You've got ways to solve that problem. One, that person who's monopolizing the doctor or taking up more time than everybody else can pay a higher share.
Sure.
Or the group can put some social pressure onto this person and say, hey, look, we all need this doctor because we're all paying, the same amount for it. But, you're taking up, 25% of his time. Can you work with us and reduce that, right? Put some social pressure on. And worst case scenario, right? You kick them out of the friendly society, right? If they're not, playing fair, so to speak, or playing along with the agreement, right? Then they can go form their own society.
The hypochondriac society where they're all fighting over the
perhaps a hypochondriac doctor will service. I'm just saying that these are all solvable problems,
right?
And we can look to the past to solve the future problems. Because if you eliminate government, then it's up to men to make these things happen. And so if people can get together voluntarily, pool their resources because, they're not getting stolen from anymore, 50% of their value, 50% of their pay, right, through all sorts of taxation, whether it's income tax or property tax or sales tax or sin tax or lottery tax or the list goes on and on. If you're not getting that money stolen from you, now you suddenly have an influx of wealth with which you can choose to do the things you want. And if you're charity-minded, now you can go and pick the charities that you think are effective,
right?
The ones that you think are doing the things that you think need to be done, instead of being forced to pay for a pseudo-charitable organization at best,
the government,
right, called the government, which is really just using your money to drop bombs on other people and then giving a little bit to some people here and there so that it
don't
gives
forget,
you something to talk about.
Corporate welfare is what they're really all about. That's where a lot of the government tax money that they steal from you goes, is to their buddies in industry, these mega corporations that during COVID, for instance, got literally hundreds of billions of dollars in printed money that, of course, came out of your pocket through the magic of inflation. All of that could end, and then you would have so much more that could actually be going to helping people. And you talk about the friendly societies. you can apply today's technology to organizing.
It could be an app,
right? Yeah, it could easily be an app.
It doesn't have to be like a clubhouse and a bunch of men and cigars.
Right.
It doesn't have to be any of that.
I mean, you can have a funny hat if you want.
Yeah, sure. Maybe that's the Funny Hat Society.
Right.
But the other thing is, imagine all of the, we'll call them products or services that government currently monopolizes, right? We'll just take a few of them. We were talking about sewers earlier. We talk about security all the time, policing, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Right? Imagine that every one of these products or services that government provides, quote unquote, was now available to you on a need-only basis. And you could just look at this menu like it's a restaurant menu, and you could go, okay, well, I don't need any of that because that doesn't apply to me or my business or my vocation or whatever. So what I do need is some of this, and I need it in this budget range. And what I do need is some of that, and I need it in this budget range. I don't need as much of this as Dave does because Dave is a different person than I, but I need more of this. And Dave doesn't, and so now I get to pick and choose from a menu of the charitable services I want to contribute to, of the security service that I want to protect my home, my property, my belongings, my person, my car, whatever it is. Think of it like insurance if you have to. Right? Now you get to choose all of that, and you get to pay a much lower price than you're currently paying.
Yeah, and one of the things that that the government really screwed up our society through the insurance requirements is that everyone who had health insurance for their body suddenly had to buy health insurance for their mind. So all of a sudden you have these subsidies because people are forced to pay for health insurance for all of these mental medications. So all of these people who, well, I've got health insurance, I'm paying for this, I may as well get my mind checked out. Oh, wouldn't you know it? We have a syndrome for everything.
Boom, you're on drugs.
Yep.
Right. And
and you can't have a gun anymore.
Right. And that is what bloated the psychiatry profession. And that's why, like I was saying earlier, look, they're just glorified drug dealers. That's all.
That's what they are. Absolutely. One of the advertisers we had years ago, I don't remember their name per se, but they were one of these Christian health sharing organizations, which sounds a lot like the Friendly Society you were talking about, but it's, a nationwide program. It's not just the local old guys trying to solve a problem. It's these religious folks that have come together and said, hey, if you've got our belief system, we want to help you. And you got to pay into it, of course, just like, an insurance, but it's not insurance. It's just sharing, right? So it's not under that same category, but it does help people pay the bills when they have unexpected health bills that come due. And so things like this do still exist.
I wish for the life of me I could remember it. They used to advertise it for it on Part of the Problem all the time. But basically there was this company that did what insurance used to do. Like they actually solved the problem of getting people's medical bills paid by having a pool that people paid into, but that is not allowed to be called health insurance. Right. They can't call that insurance.
It's health sharing is what they call it. The
health sharing. There you go. Yeah.
So it sounds like you guys are talking about, and I'm going to use a brand here even though I don't want to, Aflac. You guys remember?
I've heard of them, but I don't know anything besides they have a duck.
Supplemental health insurance stuff, right?
That's what they called it at the time, and I don't know if they're still calling it that. But the idea was, hey, your employer is paying your health insurance, but as we've seen, when somebody gets sick and you got to pay your bills and your mortgage payment and all that kind of stuff, and you're not actually being productive, you're not generating any income. And so your health insurance is only going to cover like your hospital stay. There's probably a copay for that as well. It's only going to cover so much.
Who's paying the rent?
So who's paying the rent? Who's paying the bills? Who's buying the groceries? So along comes these supplemental companies, and they do what's called gap insurance, right? And they fill in the gaps, so to speak. So, if you do, you pay into it, of course, much like insurance, and some employers will set it up so it just comes out of your paycheck or whatever. You kind of really don't see it much. But what it'll do is fill in the gaps and provide for you in a time of need. It's exactly what you're describing. It's a pool of money that a whole bunch of people pay into, and then when a guy needs it, they show up and they're like, rent's paid, bills are paid, car payment's made, your electric's paid.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long process to screw up insurance. I mean, the reason that got screwed up in the very first place is that they put wage caps during, I think it was World War II, but all of the companies were not allowed to offer over a certain amount, and they've still got to compete for talent.
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, all these people are buying insurance. If we pay for their insurance, if they're, a high position, well, that way we can attract some talent. So it became this huge thing for all of the companies and corporations to offer insurance to attract talent, and then it just became an expected thing that your job pays for your insurance.
The illustration I like to give to people of why health insurance is bloated, overregulated, and just a monster to deal with is look at your health insurance versus your vehicle insurance. Right? Now, insurance is supposed to be a thing you pay into just in case the worst happens, right? So this is true with your vehicle, right? You pay your monthly thing, and if you get into an accident, the insurance comes in and they take care of things, right? They write some checks, they hire some people, they take care of that kind of thing. When it comes to healthcare, though, they pay for it all. You pay just a little tiny bit when you're treated.
Right.
So that's an example of how different healthcare insurance is from any other type of insurance because of government regulations.
Right.
We got more coming up here and enough time if you want to join the show. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And you can join us online, of course, over at freetalklive.com. We got archives there that go back for many years. Downloadable totally for free. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
Who told you to go this way? You can do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring signs into the rally.
Walk with me.
Well, I'm comfortable here, actually.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Hey.
Who do you think you are?
Excuse me.
There is no video and audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today. This is...
You ain't gonna make it.
Wait a minute.
Really road. Whoa. Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Why are you running from me?
Because you scared me.
What am I being detained for? You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this?
Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Elon Musk has named a veteran media executive to replace him as CEO of Twitter. The billionaire who bought the company last year for $44 billion says Linda Yaccarino will start the job in around 6 weeks' time. FSN's Silicon Valley correspondent Ira Spitzer has more.
Linda Yaccarino steps into the top job at Twitter after 12 years at NBC Universal, where she served as head of advertising. In a tweet announcing Yaccarino's appointment, Musk says she will focus primarily on business operations while he shifts to product design and new technology. The billionaire Tesla CEO has had a tumultuous tenure since purchasing the social media platform last October and taking it private. He's laid off almost 3/4 of the company's staff and overseen a chaotic rollout of a new paid subscription service.
Daniel Penny, the man accused of choking a homeless man to death on the New York subway, has been charged with second-degree manslaughter. The 24-year-old Marine veteran handed himself over to police on Friday morning. FSN's Jody Jacobs has more from court in New York.
In a short court appearance, Daniel Penny was charged and then released on $100,000 cash bail and ordered to turn over his passport. Penny is the man seen in a viral video choking Jordan Neely to death on board a train. Neely was a subway performer who was homeless. According to witnesses, he was begging for food and acting erratically. The performer's death sparked several protests here in New York City as people called on authorities to arrest Penny. If found guilty, the Marine veteran could face up to 15 years in prison. He will be back in court again on July 17. Jody Jacobs, New York.
An uneasy calm remains at the US southern border with Mexico after the pandemic-era policy Title 42, used to expel millions of asylum seekers, came to an end. The Biden administration has now set out sweeping new rules, opening up some alternative routes for immigrants while bringing in regulations meant to deter illegal crossings. FSN's Benji Hire reports from El Paso in Texas on the US-Mexico border.
There are approximately 60,000 people waiting to cross into the United States from Mexico, with the Department of Homeland Security warning of difficult days ahead. But the scene on the US side, at least for now, is one of calm, of order. Law enforcement personnel here insisting they have the tools they need to prepare for a potential influx. Nonetheless, El Paso remains in a state of emergency, as do many other cities along the border.
Pakistan's ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan has been granted bail for 2 weeks after being arrested earlier this week on corruption charges. His arrest has been called unlawful by the country's Supreme Court. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. We have enough time. If you want to join the show, you can. Just hop on our SIP line. Go to sip.freetalklive.com. The super important person, I think the captain said.
I did, yeah.
Person, I like that.
Hey, look, I'm also wearing a Beard Talk Live t-shirt now.
Yeah,
for small enough values of wearing, yes.
The most bearded Liberty show online.
Indeed, and it will be online tonight at 10:30 Eastern
Let the
Time.
beard cover it up a little bit.
Captain has his new Beard Talk Live t-shirts available. And I'm sure you'll tell us more about it at the time, which will be 10:30 Eastern tonight over at watch.freetalklive.com or on any of our other video streaming platforms, but not on the radio. We love the radio, but sadly there's a pesky FCC in the way of being able to say things you really want to say.
Pesky is an understatement.
Yeah, so there won't be an FCC applying to Beard Talk Live, and there never has been. So join them tonight, 10:30 Eastern, watch.freetalklive.com. Let's go to the phones here. We have James. He's calling us from Miami. James, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Oh, hi. Yeah, thank you for taking the call. Do I sound okay?
Yeah, you sound fine. Go ahead, James.
Oh, thank you. Actually, Ian, I told you I was going to call you about the border thing, right? But I want to ask you real quick because I was trying to call the other day when you were talking about the FBI doesn't want to give you back your computers, remember?
Yeah, they tend to not want to give you things back that they take from you.
Well, I wanted to call you about that, but I wasn't able to call because I had an idea. I remember something that Vincent said about they came to your house and they took your big screen TV. Is that true?
No, they left the big screen TV. They only wanted.
Might have been Aria.
They only want to take. No, they left the TV with Aria. They only want to take stuff that has storage capacity, right? So flash drives and DVDs or hard drives, computers,
video game systems.
Apparently, they did take a video game system of hers, but yeah, that's what they like to take.
Wow. Well, I hope they give them back to you, man, for real.
Well, thank you. I definitely appreciate that. I'd rather just not go to prison. Ultimately, whether we get the stuff back or not is a lesser concern. But
yeah, they're a lot like that horrible teacher back in school, only with tasers. That they you can't have that thing. I'm going to put that in my drawer, and you will never get it back. It's like that, only with a billy club.
So, what else did you want to say tonight, James?
Well, I was. The thing is, I've been listening. Okay, I know you guys had an interview years ago with Alex Jones. Remember?
Many years ago, yeah. We talked to Alex Jones on his show. We also had him on our show. We talked to him about immigration. That's all I remember.
He's bringing up old ass.
Well, do you know the guy that works for him, Owen Schroyer, that has a show?
I do not know him. I've seen some of his content, but I don't personally know him.
Well, he's been covering the whole thing on the border. He's been there, and he has like videos of them putting people in these buses and bringing them in. So the thing I was wondering, to get a better information about this situation, I was thinking, isn't there a way that I don't think Alex Jones. To the truth, the best person for you guys to talk about that would be Owen because he's been there. So I was wondering if you guys were thinking about doing an interview with him, maybe asking him about that, see what he knows.
No, I wasn't really thinking about bringing a talk show host on here. We actually had David Hathaway on earlier this week. He is the actual sheriff of a border community, Santa Cruz County, Arizona. If you were to go, I think he was on last night, if I recall correctly, and at some other point during this week. Usually I'll put his name in the show description, so if you look for David Hathaway in our previous week's shows, you'll probably find which ones he was in. But he's the actual sheriff, and he's a libertarian. Now, he ran as a Democrat, so, because you got to get elected. But he's a principled libertarian. He used to be in the DEA a long time ago until he finally found Ron Paul and started questioning, some of the things that he was doing for a living and changed his mind. And since then, he's actually literally written the book on immigration. He is an author, and he wrote a book about it years ago. He was actually a sponsor of ours like a decade ago, probably around the same time we were on the Alex Jones show. And so the guy knows his stuff when it comes to immigration, because he's literally down there on the border.
What I'd like to know, so I mean, a lot of people are upset about immigrants being bussed into different areas, presumably because it'll change the votes or what have you. I'd like to know why the conservatives stopped bussing them into like Martha's Vineyard. Like, okay, if you're bothered by this, then do it to them. Like, I'm perfectly happy to have them around, and if you don't want them bussed here, then bus them there. Like, why did they stop doing that? That was great. That was highly entertaining.
It was pretty funny. But James, a lot of these conservatives have an angle, right? Like, their angle is to justify the crackdown that they want to see the government do. It's not enough to separate children from families and hold people in camps. They got to turn them around immediately and throw them back to the wolves, because a lot of these people are trying to get asylum, by the way. That's what these conservatives are flipping out about right now. If you go on social media, you'll see conservative people posting pictures of people standing at the border. They're saying, oh, they're coming here illegally, when the reality is they're literally standing in a line to apply for asylum, which is legal.
And make no mistake, if they allow it to occur, the E-Verify system that they're pushing for will become the mark of the beast that they fear.
Which Florida, by the way, is now mandating, according to a bill that got passed this week.
Wow.
Yeah, that reminds me of like creating a problem to find a solution.
Yes.
Yeah, problem, reaction, solution.
The Hegelian dialectic.
Yep.
Hey, but guys, can I say just one last thing real quick, right? Because sometimes I listen to the commercials that show like the old programs. You know what I mean? You know
the old promos.
Yeah, but the problem is, man, those promos they don't say, like, for example, at the beginning of the commercials, they don't say like, from the vault of Free Talk Live episode so and so from so and so, the 2000 something, right?
Yeah.
Isn't there a way that you guys can do something to the commercials to put them again with that information so we can look it up on the
No, those are so old, man. I mean, a lot of those promos, I couldn't tell you where they came from. I mean, some of them are 15, 20, years old.
But if you want to go to the archives and listen to them all, and
well, he's trying to find out.
No,
right?
But I'm just saying, somebody's going to have to do that work.
Hey, if you find them, let us know.
Yeah, good luck, man. Hey, James, great hearing from you, man. Thank you for the call tonight.
Thank you, man. Have a good night, guys.
Yeah, you too. Thank you, man. Let's talk to Law Dog in Michigan. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Law Dog.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call, Ian. We got an invasion of Goshen.
Goshen.
Gotion. They're going up in the Big Rapids area. They're going to put a solar battery plant up in there, and the farmers and everybody up there are up in arms. Gretchen and the crew are going to divvy out pretty close to $750 million in incentive to them to come in, and it's basically an invasion up there in that beautiful country.
Who is Goshen?
Goshen is a Chinese solar battery plant.
Okay. And so basically they're using political favors to move a manufacturing facility or create a manufacturing facility in Michigan. They're getting taxpayer incentives for that?
Oh, yeah. Gretchen, the crew, you know, they're financing it. It's horrible, and those people are up in arms.
Well,
and,
I'm not surprised.
I mean, Michigan's going to have a resolution. It's a revolution. It's
is it though?
Northwest upper the lower peninsula, the upper Northwest, and the Traverse City area. The like I said,
Fingers
Ferris
crossed.
State,
We
Big
certainly support
Rapids.
their independence.
Yeah, I would love to see Michigan seceding from itself in some way, shape, or form. Is there a Michigan secession movement, Law Dog?
If I was the Upper Peninsula, I would do that. But see,
are you not in that part of the state? You're elsewhere.
No, I'm down south here, but it's going to get ugly quick from the way it sounds. Maybe there's some callers, or you got some affiliates up in that Grand Rapids, Holland, Big Rapids, Traverse City
We actually do
area that
have
knows more about it.
WTKG. It's one of our oldest affiliates there in Grand Rapids. Hey, thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate it. I understand the frustration.
And look,
hear
if
this
you're
a lot.
up in Michigan and your problem is that they are taking away your liberty, we're right here, guys. New Hampshire, it's right over here. You want liberty? Come here.
If
we will
you're a
get
libertarian, see, that's the thing. There's a lot of conservatives that believe they think they want liberty, but oh wait, except for those Mexicans who want to come on up here and have their own freedoms, we can't have that. Or, oh my God, we can't have a drag show in our town. Well, no. I mean, so if you can't allow other people to have their freedoms, if you can't allow other people to live their lives the way they want to, then you really don't belong in New Hampshire, in my opinion.
And a lot of this comes back to the seen and the unseen, right? So, like, people can't see that the charities will step in without the government getting in their way.
Right.
And they can't see that when you allow these people to work for cheap, it brings your everything costs down.
Yep.
I was just going to say, so... the words I think I like to use for people when inviting them to New Hampshire is, if you would like to voluntarily contribute a portion of your time working towards achieving actual freedom in our lifetime, come to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Right.
If you come to New Hampshire, you're not going to find that we already have it. We have more of it than most states do. But we don't really have it yet.
Well, yeah,
but we're working towards it, and that's the point. We want people who desire freedom and that are willing to put in the effort to work for it.
Well, he's talking about things getting ugly. So, like, if you're facing the possibility of, like, a civil war or something, go to where you can do things peacefully.
Mm-hmm.
Go to where you can fight for freedom in a place where you don't have to get shot doing it.
I agree. There was, I think it was Justin O'Donnell, who's a Free Stater in Manchester, was having a conversation with this online influencer chick named Shu, and she was complaining about the idea of having to move somewhere in order to be around other like-minded people. And Justin was pointing out, like, this is the best solution. This is what you need to do. If you really want your life to be better, if you really want to live in a place where people are surrounding you who are of like mind, you really ought to pick up your life and move. And her viewpoint was essentially, well, I shouldn't have to. Well, that's nice.
Okay.
I agree. I agree. They shouldn't be abusing you.
Yeah.
But look, if your spouse is beating you, they shouldn't be beating you. But you might have to get out of there.
It might be uncomfortable for a little while, right? You might have to live on your own. You might have to pay all your bills or whatever, right? There may be some challenges involved in moving somewhere new. You may have to meet new friends.
The world is not what it should be.
No.
But if you move, you can make it what it could be.
If you're not willing to take one of the most basic steps, which is literally voting with your feet, then what can you really expect to change? You know? Are you just going to beg?
And I have to say, since moving and meeting people who are for freedom, the amount of discussion I don't have to have is refreshing.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how
you're already on the same
page,
you mean?
Yeah, I don't have to catch everybody up to where I'm at and re-explain every single point and thing. And, it's like people are already there. We got to, the government's the problem. We got to build our way out of this thing. We have to construct things. We have to inform people. We have to educate people.
Yeah, best part of being here is they already know. They're already caught up.
Yeah.
Everyone's already figured it out. I don't have to walk you through the process only to have you, like, forget it because you have Stockholm syndrome and you don't want to face reality.
Like Rick.
Well, right. And there was something that made me think about this recently about some friends of mine who, when they were in my circles, when we were around each other, whether it was here in New Hampshire or a friend of mine who I had as a roommate in Florida, who ended up moving because of whatever reason out to the West Coast. And my friend, who I was a roommate of mine in Florida, he was a libertarian. Like, he would go to events and stuff with me and was very helpful. And he's not a stupid man, right? Like, he's very, very intelligent. But when he moved out to California, who was he surrounded by?
Commies.
Not libertarians.
Not
Whoever it was, they weren't libertarians. And so within a decade or so, Mark Edge and I were going out to some conference, like a radio conference of some sort, talk radio out in California. We were in Los Angeles, and I looked my old friend up, and hey, let's get some dinner, right? So we went out to dinner with him, and just the way he was still, my friend and everything, like we had a nice dinner and caught up and all that, but he was supporting things that he would not have supported when he was in my circles. He had changed his belief system, likely because of who he was around. Mm-hmm. And there's another example of that where Meg McLean, I'll name names on this one because some people know her. She used to be a host here on Free Talk Live. She's designed a lot of cool stuff that you've probably seen, like the Shire Society logo. That's her work. She's done some of the flyers that we hand out. I mean, she's a talented graphical artist. She was up here, lived in Keene, did some awesome civil disobedience. She got arrested in D.C. with Adam Kokesh before doing civil disobedience in D.C. I mean, this chick was a hardcore libertarian activist. Now, doesn't seem like that. She moved out to Oregon and subsequently spent some time in London. And I think she's back in Oregon at this point. But who's she gonna be spending her time around out there? Yeah. Probably not libertarians. So she would have to adjust her demeanor, her belief systems, whatever, to try to fit in to a different society. And now whenever I see her post on Twitter, I'm like, oh man. Yeah. What has happened to you?
People become who they're around.
Yes.
Like, if you want to know what you're like, look around at the people you hang out with. That's what you're like.
Well, and the takeaway here is...
And a lot of people desire consistency and are willing to be alone wherever they are in order to remain sane, logical, consistent people. And you can be both surrounded by friends and consistent here.
Yes.
You can't do that anywhere else.
So the point I wanted to make was the other side of that is true, meaning that the people we are around who aren't per se the libertarian types. There may be some of the people who might think a certain way about immigrants, or they might think a certain way about, drugs, or whatever the issue. Whatever the issue is, they may not agree with the libertarians. But if they start being around libertarians more often, and they were talking about this on Free State Live this week. I think that's what got me thinking about it. Free State Live is the Free State Project Monday night show where they interview Free State Project participants and talk about various different things. And they were discussing, I think it was Justin O'Donnell who said that he plays Magic the Gathering with this one guy who has described himself as a leftist ever since he's known him. He still describes himself as a leftist, but he started to sound a lot more libertarian over the years after having spent so much time with these libertarian people just playing Magic the Gathering with them. And so that's an example of how other people will kind of just come along. And people who have differing belief systems, when they hear the libertarian ideas being espoused from friends and coworkers, and they're hearing it more than just some guy on the radio or more than just some libertarian presidential candidate every 4 years. When it's something they can't escape, when it's something that their friends and their coworkers are part of, they have that belief system and they espouse it, they're going to come along because most people just want to fit in, right? Like if it's true of our people who, when they move somewhere else, they just want to fit in, as sad as that is, it's true, then it's certainly true of other people who don't have the same beliefs that we do.
I agree with everything you're saying, with the exception of, ironically enough, I came here knowing that I wouldn't fit in. And I think people would say, well, you fit in just fine, Captain. But like, no, that's not really true. Right.
You don't feel like you fit in here?
Well, I don't feel like I fit in anywhere.
Okay.
And that's been the thing that has sort of been with me my entire life, is I've never felt like I've ever fit in anywhere. But I really didn't fit in the West Coast.
Okay.
Right. Like I do fit in far more here than I did there. But I came here knowing that there would be sort of this period of time of everybody feeling each other out, and like, you got to, immerse yourself in the community. You got to meet people. And I haven't done like a lot of that. My circle is pretty small right now, but my circle is filled with people I trust. And that's the most important thing to me. My community, where I live, where I bought my property, that's filled with people I don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? I know 2 of my neighbors, and that's really the closest, that anybody has really gotten to me in where I, physically reside and that kind of a thing. But fitting in is not fitting in is the reason that I came here. So, and I knew that it wouldn't be like an immediate thing. Like I'd get here and like, oh yeah, we're all friends and buddies. It's like, no, it takes work. You gotta,
you have
to establish friendship and, develop rapport with people and figure out to you who's cool, who's not,
right.
Oh, I really like that. No, I don't like that guy anymore. Right. So, I don't like that. Oh, now I really like that guy. Right?
So I think this is one of the unspoken real strengths of New Hampshire as this migration we were talking about. Hey, if you love liberty, if you're a libertarian, if you're a voluntarist, if you're an anarchist or whatever, if you care about liberty, you should move to New Hampshire. Not only because you will have a community of like-minded people with whom you can communicate and you can hang out with and do activism with or whatever, or go to a knitting club with or whatever things, play Magic together. Whatever your thing is,
There's
go
a
shooting.
Club?
There is. Go shooting, do artwork, whatever it is, you'll find people who are kind of in your viewpoint. But also the influence that a large number of libertarians can have, not just on politics, because we obviously are influential there. We've made big headways in the political system here in New Hampshire, but on the culture, which already is pro-freedom in New Hampshire. So we are backing that up to some extent. But the more people encounter libertarians, the more often they encounter them, the more libertarian those people will become. And that's the thing we have here that no other libertarian movement has.
Right.
We have mind share of people. And the more people that we can move here, the more and the larger that mind share will be. The more often people in their average everyday life are going to be hit with people who they know and respect.
Yeah.
People that they work with, people that they're, in their neighborhood, people that are dating their son or daughter or whatever, right? Like they will start to, it'll be to the point where they can't avoid these ideas.
You were talking about his leftist friend. Now, you are still going to have the same values. You're going to want the poor to be fed. You're going to want to stick up for minorities.
Yeah.
But instead of solving these problems through oppression, through increasing government, through forcing people to do things, which never actually works, you're going to be able to see how freedom solves these problems, how a free market actually gets people fed, how allowing minorities to arm themselves keeps them from being oppressed. And on the other side of things, if you're on the right side of the spectrum where you're like, hey, I want to have strong community churches, well, you can either do that by oppressing people, by forcing them to live to your values, or you can do that by having freedom and by having the liberty to create strong churches and communities.
Let's go to the phones here. We got Ricky from the Commonwealth in Pennsylvania. Go ahead, Ricky.
Thank you there, Brother Ian, Brother Captain, Peakless Mountaineer. Good evening.
What's on your mind tonight, Ricky?
Well, I heard immigration Rick, and I heard immigration Mark, and I heard other nonsense. Now, what I wanted to say is we had this great discussion between you, me, and Arya the other Tuesday, but I made one mistake when I was talking about workers, and I said about citizenship. Scratch that. Because I got a personal story to share from you from 2017. In 2017, early 17, I knew a girl by the name of Sarah. I talked to her every day. And one day she told me she lived at a cheap hotel, real cheap. She told about her new friend, Jose, and she talked to me some more. But then she told me she had a secret that it was his. But then she talked to me some more and said, Jose's troubled. I asked her a couple questions. And then one day I said to her, Sarah, I know what the secret is. He's not legal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I said, Sarah, you know me. I can help. Because she said how concerned he was lately. So one day she puts him on the phone with me, and he tells me this one. He says, Rick, because he knows what I'm all about. And he puts me on the phone and he says, Mr. Ricky, I work, I go to work, I come home. But, sometimes policemen, he stared at me and stopped me. And, I'm not even Mexican. I'm Spanish. And I told him, I said, well, Jose, he's a bad cop, that one. They're not all going to do that. But here's the thing. If you ever need any help, you contact me. Now, what ended up happening is after that, I heard that Jose got his phone stolen, his contract phone. I did meet him before that and had a beer with him. But I go over to Sarah's place one day after that. I go in, because I visit her once a week, and she looks sad. I said, what's wrong? She said, he's gone. So what do you mean he's gone? I said, he's gone. I talked to him last night. He went up to his room, and I never saw him. I said, Sarah, he's not coming back. So what do you mean? I think it's pretty obvious to you guys. Somebody reported him. And
that's unfortunate.
And you know what's worse than that? Because I'll tell you something about this guy. He was way into the process for citizenship. He was
too bad. It sounded like he was a worker, though. It sounded like, and that's what you hear the most about, at least in my experience, about immigrants, is they're hardworking people who will work circles around a lot of Americans and do it for less. And I think that's who you're getting. Those are the people that are lined up to come here for the most part. Out of time tonight. Join these guys here in about a half an hour at watch.freetalklive.com for Beard Talk Live. We'll see you tomorrow. Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes to vote on. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by the Treasury. In fact, that's exactly how we got this sponsorship. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash pays